you feel using Ultramax Tea that we offer an unconditional 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you're ready to lose that stubborn belly fat, boost testosterone levels, and reach your peak romantic performance, order Ultramax Tea today. Call 888-400-0435, 888-400-0435, or go to andro400.com. That's andro400.com.
By now, you know that sound. It's the sound of the Home Depot. But what about that sound? You're listening to a set of GE appliances, complete with all you need to keep food fresh, dishes clean, and everything else stress-free. Making this the sound of savings on top brand appliances. The Home Depot. How doers get more done. Final days to get up to 25% off select GE appliances. Ends January 25th. Offer valid January 5th through January 25th, 2023. U.S. only. See store or online for details.
The NFL playoffs live on Odyssey.
Throws, caught, touchdown as time expires. Unbelievable turn of events.
Non-stop coverage from the biggest sports radio stations in the country. Podcasts dedicated to each NFL team and postseason games streaming live for free.
Takes the handoff, looks right, throws right, end zone, caught, touchdown.
Your playoffs, your Odyssey. Get in the game and download the free Odyssey app today.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/joy. At Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/joy. That's 4hims.com/joy for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/JOY.
You know what? Let's throw a party this year for the big game.
Hey, we can invite our friends over and all take turns yelling at the TV during the game.
But first, we should get a new TV.
Yeah, like one of the top-rated brands, Samsung, LG, or Sony.
Okay, so I'll start shopping on the internet, then head over to the Warehouse Club to compare.
But if that's all we do, we'll be sorry.
Why?
Because the best deals on those top-rated TVs are at Video Only, not online or at the club.
Video Only has better deals?
Yep. We could save up to $500 if we shop smart.
Then we could afford a larger model and really impress our friends.
At Video Only, you won't find huge stores with refrigerators or microwaves, but you will find the best deals on top-rated TVs, soundbars, and monitors. Shop around. Just make sure you visit Video Only, because if you don't,
you'll be sorry.
In Mountain View, San Mateo, Union City, Dublin, and San Rafael. Video Only.
Hey guys, it's a new year, and your New Year's resolution should be to get rid of ED and low testosterone. The doctors at Prime Male Medical have many years of experience, and they're the leaders in ED and low testosterone. But don't take my word for it. Listen to Dr. Robert Rowley.
At Prime Male Medical, we have virtually every medication known to man to help men. We specialize in treatments for ED and low T, and we have a 99% success rate. Most impotence problems can be treated in just one visit. We offer a variety of treatments, including high-dose sublingual lozenges, ultrasound-based shockwave therapy, and injectable therapies. We can also treat testosterone issues when needed.
There you have it, guys. Make the call. Why wait? Let Prime Male Medical help you improve your lifestyle. KCBS listeners get a PSA test, testosterone test, Doppler ultrasound, and a full year of free visits for just $99. Call now, 415-761-4037. That's 415-761-4037. Or go to primemalemedical.com.
Golfers, tee it up this Thursday through Sunday at the Golf Mart for the Callaway Fitting event and be the first to score the new Paradigm woods and irons. The woods are engineered with forged carbon to maximize distance and forgiveness. The irons feature a forged face for increased launch speed and spin. A new paradigm in performance. Go to worldwidegolfshops.com and reserve your free custom fitting experience happening this Thursday through Sunday. The Golf Mart, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM at HD1 San Francisco. An Odyssey station. It's time for Warriors This Week.
Shot clock down to 10. Poole, dribble drive to Thompson in the corner. He'll launch with 5. It's a 3 and say goodnight.
Now, here's Sean Dickinson.
Takes the 3. It's up and no good. Rebound. DiVincenzo. Ball game over. What a huge win for the Golden State Warriors. Final score, Warriors 120. Cavaliers 114. The Warriors will head home with a winning road trip, winning 3 of the 5, and they did it tonight. Stephen Curry with a big hug of Jordan Poole from behind. Gets another one from Draymond Green. No Draymond, no Steph, no Clay, no Wiggins, no Andre. No problem for Golden State. And they get the victory.
How about that? How about that?
I didn't see that one coming, JD.
Nor did I, as we welcome you into Warriors This Week here on 95.7 The Game. It's John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason. And yeah, the Warriors back home and coming off a winning trip, 3-2 in the trip. They were 3-16 on the road going into the trip. It looked like an awful situation, frankly, as they were able to competitively drop the game in Boston on Thursday night. But then the news comes out, as it was expected, on Friday, that the Warriors were going to rest Steph and Clay, along with Draymond and Andrew Wiggins. But the Warriors, led by Jordan Poole and the bench, they go in, they get one back, I think is probably the best way to put it. Some similarities between that game and I think the game that the Warriors played before the trip at home against Phoenix,
Absolutely.
Where they were healthy and the Suns had Mikal Bridges and the 8-15 on their roster, and they got the Warriors down 27 and ultimately hung on for a victory. Basically, I guess those two cancel each other out.
Maybe. You stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to make that exact point. But I do think last night, I know coach of the Cavs, J.B. Bickerstaff, said, you got to respect the other team, and we just gave him a chance to tee up those open threes. I think early on there was some of that. But I think at some point, Cleveland, they were awake and realized what was going on. But the way the Warriors shot, as anybody who saw the game knows, I mean, you go 23 of 43, you're going to be tough to beat. The shot, the one that'll always stand out in my mind, the shot Ty Jerome made in the fourth quarter. They're up 4, key possession, and they got nothing going on offensively. And he's out there near the hash mark, and the shot clock's winding down. So, well, I might as well shoot it. Good! I mean, it was just that kind of night for the Warriors from 3.
Yeah, it was, and it doesn't matter who's playing for you if you make 23 threes on most nights.
Yes.
And I do think there was the letdown on the Cavs side. Who cares about the Cavs? That's on them. And we've seen this a lot. I mean, the irony in a sense that the Warriors get their first win against an above 500 team on the road all season. And it comes in a game where the top 4 sit out against a team, obviously, that's good. And it plays into this whole load management, selective competitiveness, big picture thing that's frankly plagued the Warriors at times this season, because they've been, I think, less than motivated in a lot of these games in other teams' buildings, going up against teams that see the champs and see Steph Curry and see Draymond Green and these guys coming into their building, and they want to put a thumping on them. And so, teams at the bottom of the barrel have been able to be competitive against the Warriors, hang in some games, and then win, I think, more than the Warriors would believe is their share in the final 5 or 6 minutes. It was the opposite last night. It looked like Cleveland initially, and Steve Kerr's talked about this. He mentioned it after that loss to the Suns back on the 10th of January before the Warriors headed on the road, the fact that there is a natural letdown for a team when they're facing an opponent that is missing a lot of stars, and you gotta guard against that,
especially when they're playing, and they're playing on the second night of a back-to-back.
And guys that are going to get opportunities that haven't had a lot of opportunities, or that are going to have enhanced roles. And often, what happens in these games is the better team allows the lesser team to get rolling, and then by the time that they do wake up and start to play, which I do think the Cavs did. Mid to late second quarter, it didn't matter, and it was almost as if once it got to halftime and it was only a 5-point game, and the Warriors were feeling pretty good about it, although I was thinking, wow, they're only up 5 and they hit 14 threes, and guys are going off. I'm thinking this has the potential, even at that point, to go the other way and end up being another road loss for the Warriors. But the Cavs came out, I think, a little flat at the beginning of the third, almost thinking that they had it won.
Right.
Like, oh, we're down 5 at the half. They're not going to win. They're not going to hit 14 threes again, and they didn't. They hit 9, which was more than enough, but the Warriors came out smoking at the beginning of the third quarter and put them down 20, and then at that point I thought, you know what? The Warriors are winning this freaking game, and they were able to hang on, even though the Cavs did make a couple of runs.
You can't go wrong listening to Tim Roy and Jim Barnett here on 95.7 The Game. That said, last night I had a chance, JD, to hear a little bit, just a little bit of the Cavs radio broadcast. And the part I heard was during that third quarter. And I think Austin Carr might be the analyst on radio. I'm not sure who the guys were. But my point is, it was like listening to a broadcast of a funeral where everybody was mad that the guy died. Because they were like, well, that's what happens when you're going to give them those shots. 3 is more than 2. They're getting 3s and we're getting 2s. And they were struggling to understand how it was happening. And then that was when the Warriors went up 19 and you started to hear, boo! So they didn't know what was going on. They didn't understand how it was happening. But the load management thing, obviously it wasn't even, but it cut both ways. As far as I know, Donovan Mitchell is not hurt. He didn't suit up last night. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah,
but
he had a groin, I think,
okay.
But it was more, and he missed the last game.
Okay.
So I think they were being cautious with him. Well, hey, no need to bring him back if the Warriors are going to roll out Jordan Poole and Ty Jerome in the backcourt.
Yeah. So
and
that
they got
cut
bit
both ways a little bit. Sure.
No, and they got bit by it. And look, all credit to the Warriors. They came out and they competed, and that's all you can do in that type of situation. And players that are getting enhanced roles are going to want to come out and put their best foot forward. And honestly, I mean, it's a team game, and the Warriors on this trip, there were times where they played well. There were times where it looked like the Warriors who have struggled a lot on the road this season. But for them to play as competitively as they did in Boston, and I was frustrated and borderline angry at the notion that the loss against Boston was this great feat. Although the competitiveness is bad, like, stop telling me that everything's fine when you're under 500. And look, I get it. The Celtics are a good team. That it's no guarantee because you play well or compete that you're going to beat a good team on the road. It wasn't the loss itself, but it was the notion that hey, bring that effort against some other teams on the road, and you may win some games to a point where you're not a game under 500 going into that one. So I was a little put off by the tone of, hey, everything's fine, because there's been a lot of everything's fine, but right when the Warriors have a chance to push forward and release themselves from the glut of mediocrity in the Western Conference from really the 5 seed to about the 13 seed to this point in the season, they haven't been able to do it for whatever reason. So to see the bench players be able to come in and play their asses off, frankly, against Cleveland, that in getting a win, okay, now you can go back and applaud the Boston effort a little bit more because you at least split those 2 games.
Yeah, and you can say, okay, overall, pretty good road trip. As I said last week, JD, nobody puts a happy face on a loss like the Warriors. And in part, that's because of what they went through last year, where as much as they struggled in the second half, they said, you know what, as long as we're ready to go for the playoffs, we'll be good to go. And they were, and they won a championship. So they've proven they can work their way through these things. That said, they don't win last night without JaMychal Green. And I know I've been one of those people that said they're going to have to go out and get somebody. I'm sure we'll address that today. Anthony Slater writing this week that it doesn't look like they're going to necessarily. I still think they'd like to, but we'll see. My point is, if JaMychal Green plays the rest of the way anything like he did last night, I don't know that they need anybody else, because in 16 minutes, he had 13 points, and he had 8 rebounds, hit 3 of 5 threes. It's great to see, because he's been through so much with, leg infection. Those things, when you get an infection like that, that's really bad. Staph infection. It's not just painful, but it gets a little dangerous there. So bless him for recovering and coming back. And him and Jerome last night, they were like all-stars against the Cavs.
They were, and the Warriors need it. And again, hat tip to them. I think the thing you always find yourself, asking after a game like that is how much of what the bench players were able to do, being able to play freely, translates back to a more limited role in a rotation where Steph and Clay and Draymond and Wiggins are all playing. I kind of look at last night, And I think, well, and Steve Kerr even mentioned this after the game. Hey, Ty Jerome had a great game. He's probably going to be inactive on Sunday night, which is the norm when Steph and Clay are playing and when DiVincenzo and Poole are coming off the bench. You don't need that fifth guard, and they're trying to protect Ty Jerome's games for other nights, probably down the line where they're going to have to load manage again, and try to remain as competitive as they possibly can. JaMychal Green, we'll see. He's got to be, if he can do some of the things that he did last night, I think the Warriors would welcome it, and he probably finds himself being the ninth man on a playoff roster in the rotation. Maybe it alleviates some of the concerns that the Warriors have to go out and maybe do get somebody that can do what JaMychal Green does more effectively. I thought Jonathan Kuminga was back last night and flying around and being an athlete and providing energy, and I think they've needed that.
And defense.
That's something that he was starting to carve out a role as far as being the eighth man after Poole and DiVincenzo off the bench. I mean, beyond that, DiVincenzo's going to be playing. Anthony Lamb's kind of been doing his thing. And I got to give a lot of credit to Kevon Looney. I mentioned this on Twitter. Just the respect level that you have for a guy like Kevon Looney when just over 2 nights, it's basically, hey, Kevon, you're going to come off the bench. And I characterize it as, just from a human standpoint, like if you're playing on like the game in Boston is got to be one of the most fun games on the schedule. And to be like, hey, you know what, Kevon, you're going to play, but you're not going to start. And like that's got to be a little bit of and he's a pro and he handles it with the utmost of class, and he gets it there and he plays his tail off. But just the night to night of, Kevon, you're not going to start in the biggest game on the schedule with 2.5 million people watching and Boston going crazy, and it's where we won the title 7 months ago and all of that. You're not going to start, but you know what? The next night, help hold up the back end of the roster.
Right.
And in Cleveland with none of the stars, and he just does it, and he is a leader and a tone setter. And so just even before, regardless of the outcome last night for the Warriors, I just hat tip to Kevon Looney for the just utmost in professionalism that he puts out there on a night in, night out basis.
Amen. Yeah, and one of the reasons he can do that, to your point, is because you can do that with him because you know that he will do it and he'll perform and he'll say, yeah, I know if you're a Warrior center at some point you're going to get benched. Jordan Poole last night had another incredible game, and he's so valuable to this team. I've been very critical of him, and I will continue to be if he continues to turn the ball over and make bad plays like he made one last night. But he's so important because, as we said, you've got this team where certain nights you're going to be managing the load of your veterans, and you need a guy like Jordan Poole who, when you don't have Steph, and sometimes you don't have Steph or Clay, you know that, all right, he can get his 30 or more. Last night he had 32 points. But I want to applaud Steve Kerr for a coaching moment. I'm a little surprised this was somewhat controversial, where towards the end of the game and the Warriors are trying to hang on to a lead. And, they've had a problem with that this year on the road, hanging on to leads. And Jordan Poole is called for a push-off, I think, that he didn't agree with.
Yeah, an offensive foul.
Yeah. And so he doesn't give the official the ball because, no, I want to talk about it. And he gets a delay of game technical. And Steve Kerr says, Jordan, lock the F in. And, that's coaching. And that was definitely the moment for that. And it's amazing that Steve Kerr had to defend that, which he did. He said, I'm going to continue to be hard on him. But that's just kind of the Jordan Poole experience. They don't win that game without him last night, but he made another one of those, what are you doing moments, and Steve Kerr snapped him back to reality.
Well, and I think it's also about picking your spots with a guy like Jordan Poole. I think you don't want to do it in a situation where he's the lead guy and you need him and he's having a really good game, but he turns it over 1 or 2 times down. I feel like the fans went, oh, Jordan, you cost us this game or that game. And that's not the time that you do it.
Right.
The time that you do it is the time that Steve Kerr chose to do it last night.
Yes. Where it's just a matter of him. You needed to have some composure and just keeping the ball from the officials so you can talk about it because you're unhappy. Definitely not.
And the rat on the rat on the table as far as that goes, and I think why it becomes a good moment for Steve Kerr to make the point with Jordan Poole is officials don't like him. Let's just be honest. The officials don't like him, and I think at times maybe they don't give him some calls that he should get because they don't like him. Why do they not like him? Because he's always kind of yapping, chirping. Yeah. And I think he does it in a way that...
when he was called for that offensive foul on the baseline, when he was LeVert was trying to foul him.
Exactly.
And they called the foul on Poole.
And so I think, at that point, that is a good teachable moment in that, hey, you can't be doing this. constantly with the officials, especially if you're going to be a player that we're going to count on being on the floor in big moments and being on the floor in big moments in playoff games, because there is a human element to it. And
you can't win that battle. And not only are you going to lose, we're going to lose.
And I do think, and again, fair or unfair, just being bluntly honest about it, I do think a lot of officials in the league, who are you? Like, I think, like it's one thing if a superstar player were coming at them with that kind of energy, believing that they deserved calls here or there. Jordan Poole, like, come on. And there is kind of a passive-aggressive way to it, which I think could be a little bit more grating to the officials. Look, you want to get the calls right, and that's the most important thing. But I'm with you as far as Steve Kerr picking that moment to be like, you gotta what was it? You gotta bleep and lock in.
Yeah. Lock the bleep in.
Lock the bleep in.
Lock the bleep in today to Warriors This Week with John Dickinson and Wendy Gleason.
Yeah, we're locked the bleep in. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. As always, the phone lines are open. The Xfinity mobile text line is open. We're also live on YouTube and Twitch here on a Saturday on 95.7 The Game. We appreciate the help of our guy Craig Valentino for getting all that set up as he does here for 95.7 The Game. And the Warriors, they win last night. To me, it changes the whole tone of the whole road trip. And look, 23-23 is still not where the Warriors want to be, but they still are in this glut of, I call it the glut of mediocrity in the Western Conference. So opportunities to move up and down, but at some point,
that win over the Wizards looks big all of a sudden.
Well, they all are at this point, because and I think this road trip shows you that you just don't totally know what you can count on. You know, you can count on an effort, on a major league effort from the Warriors when they're playing a team that is considered a rival. You know, if they're playing Memphis or Boston, they're going to bring it. You don't really know if they're going to bring it. And they didn't really bring it in Chicago and Washington. They brought it in Washington once it became clear that they might lose 2 in a row after having
once somebody got under Draymond's skin a little bit.
Yeah, and so they're still searching for this motivation, and it's clear the motivation isn't just being the 4 seed or being the 6 seed. Like, it's just like that may become motivation for them, but it's not going to. It's just not going to be motivation for them in January. It might become motivation for them in March, or with 10, 15, 20 games to go, but it's not going to be with 35 to 40 games to go. And I think, that's navigating the next 15 to 20 games, I think, is important, because that it is still going to be the early season motivation. And I think this road trip kind of proves that. But how do you win enough to stay afloat enough to where once you do actually care about the seeding, if that's going to be mid to late March, you still are in a position to reel off enough wins in a row to where you can make a significant impact. And there's already somebody coming down my road in the text line.
Really?
Hey, JD,
already?
JD, stop. They're not going to be one of the top 2 seeds. It doesn't matter beyond that. The hell it doesn't. The hell it doesn't matter beyond that. You do not want to be in the play-in tournament and think you're going to run the table as a 7 or an 8 seed. You want to be playing an elimination game right out of the chute, or a couple of elimination games right out of the chute. No, I don't necessarily think the Warriors are in danger of falling out of the top 10 unless they have another injury. And that's the other thing, where playing this game of not winning enough for your effort on a night in, night out basis sets you up to where, well, what if Steph has to miss another 2 weeks again? And you can't go 6-5 as the Warriors did, expending a ton of energy around the Christmas and New Year's holiday to earn those wins. You could wind up, Phoenix was entrenched as the 3rd seed.
Yes.
Like, they were the 3rd seed. And
they were going to be right around there.
And they lost 4/5 of their starting lineup for a stretch, and haven't had Booker in a month, and Chris Paul may be kind of washed, and he's in and out. And then they lost Payne. They basically lost Ayton, was out for a couple. They basically lost everybody for about a month. And I think they're, 2-12 or something, 2-13 or something in the last 15 games. And they went from the 3rd seed to 13th. And now I think they won a couple, and they're back in the 10th spot, I think, right now. But the point is, it's extremely fragile. So these regular season games do matter. And it was why I didn't love, although I understand why the Warriors did it, the fact that they went the load management route. But when you go win a game like that, when you load manage, then hey, I'm here for you. You win the argument
The
at
ends
that point.
justify the means. I do think the Warriors, it seems that they have less concern. They're putting less of an emphasis on the regular season than I think any good team I've ever seen. And I understand it. And I know they've got a lot of things they're still working out. They do seem to have the sense that, look, we get in there, we'd love to finish higher, but maybe we can't. If we get into once we get into the postseason, if Steph is Steph and we have our core guys and they're healthy, we're going to be all right. We're going to have a shot at it. I don't know if that's true, but it's, to me, increasingly clear that that's the way they're looking at it, JD. Well, I think it's a very dangerous way to approach it, but it's pretty clear that's how they're approaching this.
To me, there's even in that sense a difference between being the 6th seed and let's say being 7 or 8, where you have to be in the play-in tournament. I've said 4, and I don't think 4 is off the table. It looks off the table if you look at how competitive the Warriors have been through the course of the first 46 games of the season, but I don't think it is off the table because I'm going to give the Warriors the benefit of the doubt that they can lock in and go on a 10-2 run at some point, over a 12-game stretch.
Yeah, you're 3 games out of the 4th spot as we speak.
And if they did that right now, they might be 3rd at the end of that stretch. Yes, I agree. 1 and 2 are done. Like Memphis 31-14. Lost last night. Denver 33-13. They're playing for the top.
Starting to separate a little bit.
Yeah, they're playing for the top 2 right now. You have surprising Sacramento at 3, 26-18. The Pelicans are 26-20, although they're injured. I think the Pelicans would be the number 3 team if they haven't had a bunch of players out. So I think their ceiling is probably higher than their record, even though their record is 26-20. And then beyond that, it's Dallas. You start to go between 5th in the West, Dallas, and the Lakers, who are 13th in the West. It's a 3.5 game separation. So, and again, if I take the standings, it's funny. I was having some people, I know we both have background in Sacramento, and I was having some fun the other night because I think at the close of business a couple of nights ago, maybe before the Boston game, the Warriors were 6th. And the Kings were 3rd.
Yeah.
And I was having some fun, like, well, what a reward for the Kings having their best year in 17 years and even probably exceeding the highest of expectations right now. Like, I don't think anybody had them 26-18. Hey, but your reward is you're playing the Warriors in the first round in a 7-game series. Like, Warriors probably win that series in 4 or 5, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're fully healthy. And so, or the Clippers, I think if they were healthy, boy, a 3 seed, huh? But the way the standings are, I think there are going to be in the 3 through 6 slots, the teams that are able to avoid the play-in tournament, there are going to be some topsy-turvy matchups. Like if the Kings were 3 and the Warriors were 6, the Warriors would be the favorite if they're healthy. If there was a 4-5 matchup that was similar, you could have, what if Phoenix is the 5 and somebody like is the 4, or Phoenix is the 6, and so those matchups are not going to be, they're not going to be as they typically are in NBA history, where the team with the higher seed is just the better team and the favorite.
I do think, and I know you disagree because we talked about this before the show. I do think, and maybe I think this, and I'm just hoping it, I think things will normalize between now and the start of the postseason. I think we'll have a clearer idea as teams presumably get healthier. That's iffy, but as teams start to focus more on the task at hand, I think by the time the playoffs roll around, we're going to have a clearer idea of separation between some of these teams. I could be totally wrong because I know it's been that type of year where you got, as an example, Utah that we all assumed, they're going to be tanking, and they're at 8th right now, 24-25. I think there's a really good chance anyway that by the time the playoffs roll around, it's going to look a lot less muddled, and that, what do you call it, the muddled mediocrity. I think we're going to have some of the better teams start to separate themselves, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and we will have to see, and the flip side to that is, and the Xfinity mobile text line says this, and this is why all of these games matter, and I'm a little more in the camp of you gotta try to it's not just about how you playing, it's about are you winning enough, and again, a 3-2 road trip is enough. Yes. I think. The Warriors were 3-16 on the road, so going 3-2, no matter how you do it, and I don't care about it could have been 4-1 or this and that. But going 3-2 is enough. But the 5-5-9 Warriors are also 2 or 3 games from being out of the playoffs. That's why it's fragile. And that, like, the Warriors, if they had lost last night,
I agree completely.
If they had lost last night, you could say, "Oh, no big deal. They rested everybody." And the Boston game, they were locked in. Everybody knows everybody knows the Warriors can still compete with Boston in a singular series. Okay? Everybody knows they can compete with Memphis in a singular series. That's not the question. The question is, can they win 4 series, one on top of the other, potentially without home court advantage in any of them, and maybe out of the play-in tournament where you're playing an elimination game or a double elimination type situation right off the bat, and potentially being on the road. That's the question. If they had lost last night, 22-24, they would be on the outside looking in.
JD, here's what gets me, and I know that they have a chance here coming back home, and they have a chance here to get things headed in the right direction. There's every chance that they're going to have a strong finish to the season. But, a lot of people have been saying, and I'm talking mostly about fans, some members of the media, that, you know what, they're still good enough where they can flip a switch. And some people looked at the game in Boston and said, see, I told you they could. Well, they lost the game.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about? And they had another collapse. And that's like the 7th time this year on the road they had a late collapse. So, yeah, they came back and had a nice win. They did play well against Boston, but don't tell me that was an example of how they could flip the switch, because they didn't flip the switch. They lost that game.
They did. And again, they got it back last night, so you feel a little bit better about it. But while last night is an important win, last night doesn't necessarily translate to the big picture of how do the pieces fit. And that's something I want to get into coming back. 888-957-9570. John Dickinson, Whitey Gleason. We got a lot to get into. The conversation about the trade deadline coming up. And a lot of rumors this week. And speculation. So we will get into that as far as what the Warriors need to do. And, there was a part of me last night, Whitey, that thought, there's something to the disconnect between the core players and the rest of the roster that is even brought to the forefront just in how well the rest of the roster played without the core players. So I wanted to get into that coming back. It's John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason. Warriors this week. We're off and running here on a Saturday at 95.7 The Game.
You know what? Let's throw a party this year for the big game.
Hey, we can invite our friends over, and I'll take turns yelling at the TV during the game.
But first, we should get a new TV.
Yeah, like one of the top-rated brands, Samsung, LG, or Sony.
Okay, so I'll start shopping on the internet, then head over to the warehouse club to compare.
But if that's all we do, we'll be sorry.
Why?
Because the best deals on those top-rated TVs are at Video Only, not online or at the club.
Video Only has better deals?
Yep. We could save up to $500 if we shop smart.
Then we could afford a larger model and really impress our friends.
At Video Only, you won't find huge stores with refrigerators or microwaves, but you will find the best deals on top-rated TVs, soundbars, and monitors. Shop around. Just make sure you visit Video Only, because if you don't,
you'll be sorry.
In Mountain View, San Mateo, Union City, Dublin, and San Rafael. Video Only.
If you want to save money and start the year right, Staples has you covered.
I need everything to restock my business. File folders, break room supplies, even business cards.
Staples has you covered with big savings on everything you need for your home or office. And now at Staples, Rewards members get $30 back via Staples Store Bonus when they spend $100. That's $30 to use toward everything from ink to tech. Save big right now at Staples, the working and learning store. Rewards members only. Store bonus redeemable in-store only. Offer ends 1/21.
The new year is here. Time for a change. Start a recession-resistant new career in the high-demand IT field with My Computer Career. In just months, already in IT? Build your cybersecurity skills and prep for thousands of open positions employers nationwide are desperate to fill. Attend classes live online or on campus, and financial aid is available to those who qualify, including the GI Bill. Make this your year. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. That's mycomputercareer.edu.
Every week, Damon and Retto go inside the 49ers locker room. The great Trent Williams.
He's always been regarded as one of the better backs in the NFL, but to actually have him and see him up close and personal, you kind of see why his reputation is what it is.
Hear a different 49er each week on Damon and Retto.
Bang, bang, not a gang!
Brought to you by Harris Ranch beef. Visit your local Rayleigh's, Bel Air, and Nob Hill markets for all your beef and tailgate needs.
Hey guys, it's a new year, and your New Year's resolution should be to get rid of ED and low testosterone. The doctors at Prime Male Medical have many years of experience, and they're the leaders in ED and low testosterone. But don't take my word for it. Listen to Dr. Robert Rowley.
At Prime Male Medical, we have virtually every medication known to man to help men. We specialize in treatments for ED and low T, and we have a 99% success rate. Most impotence problems can be treated in just one visit. We offer a variety of treatments, including high-dose sublingual lozenges, ultrasound-based shockwave therapy, and injectable therapies. We can also treat testosterone issues when needed.
There you have it, guys. Make the call. Why wait? Let Prime Male Medical help you improve your lifestyle. KCBS listeners get a PSA test, testosterone test, Doppler ultrasound, and a full year of free visits for just $99. Call now, 415-761-4037. That's 415-761-4037. Or go to PrimeMaleMedical.com.
Golfers, tee it up this Thursday through Sunday at the Golf Mart for the Callaway Fitting Event and be the first to score the new Paradigm woods and irons. The woods are engineered with forged carbon to maximize distance and forgiveness. The irons feature a forged face for increased launch speed and spin. A new paradigm in performance. Go to worldwidegolfshops.com and reserve your free custom fitting experience happening this Thursday through Sunday. The Golf Mart, home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee.
No H2O is the leading waterless mobile auto detailer in the Bay Area, offering a full range of detailing services. No H2O comes to your home, business, or wherever is most convenient for you and gives your car a great wash with no water. No H2O auto detailing is ultra convenient and gets great scratch-free results for your car. And remember, no water is used. Call Brian today at 925-238-8182, 925-238-8182, or visit them at noh2owalnutcreek.com.
Listen for the latest ski, snow, and road conditions with the Toyota Tahoe Report every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday throughout this snow season with Johnny Mosley. Brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Toyota, let's go places.
Guys, fellas, men, are you Roman ready for Valentine's Day? Right now, generic Viagra, aka Sildenafil, is just $4 per dose at Roman. Just complete a free online visit with a U.S. licensed healthcare professional. If medication is appropriate, Roman sends everything right to your door with free shipping and in discreet packaging. Go to ro.co/Viagra to get generic Viagra for just $4 per dose. Do it by February 8th for 20% off and guaranteed shipping by Valentine's Day. That's ro.co/Viagra.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Trevor Noah has added 2 more San Francisco shows to his Off the Record tour, December 8th and 9th at the Masonic. All shows are on sale now at Ticketmaster. For your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Trevor Noah, head to 957thegame.com.
Great road trip to win 3 out of 5 against good teams with some guys out, guys coming back into the lineup. And then on top of that, I think we had a lot of bonding on this trip. Go to the White House and celebrate a championship, meet the president and the vice president, and really spend a lot of time together. It was a great week. I'm really hoping that this is kind of the boost that we've been looking for. And I think it's all set up for us. We're getting guys back. Guys are finding their rhythm and are playing pretty well heading home. So it's time to go take care of business.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
And we don't play like that out here. Let's go. John Dickinson, Whitey Gleason.
It's all coming together.
888-957-9570. Warriors get a big win last night in Cleveland. Warriors This Week with you until 1 here this afternoon, morning and afternoon on 95.7 The Game. What do you got, Whitey? Got a little something.
I got a question for you, and if you want to, put it aside for later, I understand. But I heard this morning, Mitch Lawrence, who was in on one of the NBA and Sirius shows, they were talking about on this NBA show about the Warriors sitting on all these players last night. Mitch Lawrence, who I think New York Daily News, I think he worked in LA for a while. He said that for the Warriors to rest the 4 guys that rested last night, he said it was, quote, shameful. he said it is shameful for a team to do that. I know Steve Kerr addressed it last night. I know a lot. It's a hot topic. I think you and Steiny have addressed it as, load management is maybe the league's biggest issue. And Steve Kerr was apologetic again last night about it. But do you think it's shameful? I'd love to get your views on that. If at some point we can discuss that. I know we have a lot of things to get to today, but that's just something I've been meaning to throw out there.
Yeah, I mean, shameful is strong.
Yeah.
I hate it. I mean, and when you lose the game in Boston, it's funny. It's twofold. Like when the Warriors lost in Boston, I thought to myself as I was getting ready to do the post-game show, well, none of those guys are probably going to play tomorrow in Cleveland. And that, in the moment, you're thinking that means that's probably going to be a loss. And I am of the belief that you have to be playing at a certain level to be afforded the luxury to do that. So if you're 10 games over 500, or if you're like Denver, Memphis, if you're Boston right now, you want to do that here and there, second of a back-to-back. Like I have no problem. I have less of a problem with it if you're actually an established team with a good record in that season. I think it's a little more disrespectful just to the league, to the opponent, to whatever, when you are under 500 and you need every win you can, and you're just kind of putting your nose up at the league saying, you know what, we don't need this game. Like, we're fine. We're under 500. We might be 12th in the West at the end of the night if we don't win. We don't care. Big picture is more important. And look, I understand it. And the Warriors, Steve was asked about it in the pregame in Cleveland yesterday, and he flat out said, hey, we don't take record into account at all when it comes to whether we're going to make the decision. It's all about health. It's all about the big picture. Yeah, it sucks for the fans. Yeah, we might take an L here or there. But so I hate it. I was a little annoyed by it, even though I knew it was coming when it was announced that everybody was going to rest in Cleveland. But when you go out and you win, and this is the first time the Warriors, I think, in 5 games doing this, had been able to win. I think they were competitive in one of the games in New Orleans. They've had some ugly games. Brooklyn was awful. But when you win, I mean, you can't, if you're able to win a few times doing it, then you can't really complain about it.
I just think, given the unique circumstances that we have with the Warriors roster this year, you take last night, and I think it's justifiable. And I know it's a real issue for the league, but players should be resting here or there. And last night, when you have Clay's coming off, major surgery still. I know it's been a while, but he's still not ready to go back-to-back games. Draymond has had back issues. Wiggins has had the groin strain he's still recovering from, and Steph's recovering still from partially dislocated shoulder. That's just the reality. And you have an older roster, and you're going to be riding this older roster hard the rest of the way. And it sucks for fans in Cleveland who got those tickets whenever they got them, thinking they're going to see at least some of those guys. But I think, given the unique situation the Warriors are in, I still think it's the most prudent approach for them. I do.
Clay's in his own category, and I'm on record as saying I wouldn't play Clay in the second of a back-to-back, maybe for the rest of his career, to be honest. And I think Clay didn't like Steve Kerr saying that early in the year, that he was just not going to play in any back-to-backs for this season. Clay's in his own category, and I think Clay has benefited from the rest. I mean, if you look at some of the games where he's played his best basketball, it's been coming off of a couple of days of rest when they've given him a break, and then they've had a break, and then he's been able to come back. So I think that bodes well for getting a better Clay in the playoffs than maybe you're even getting in the regular season over a 6-month span. He's been terrific, obviously, in January. The numbers dictate that. I just look at it, and I think it's always case by case. But in this specific case, as far as Cleveland, and why I think it rubbed me a little bit more the wrong way, was the fact that Curry had been out a month. So it's not like he'd been playing a bunch of games. And the Warriors themselves had a couple of days off, too. And I know they played Friday. I know they played Sunday, Monday, afternoon games.
They have to play again tomorrow.
And they do have to play again tomorrow, and it's an earlier start. And Steve Kerr referenced that as part of being part of the factor in all of that as well. But you also did have Tuesday and Wednesday off before you played Boston. So it's not like you had to, it's just, I don't know. And Curry had been not playing.
But I'm not sure he's fully recovered either. I mean, we don't know. I think
Fair.
that's still an issue
and
too.
Conditioning, and again,
Yeah.
we're talking about a shoulder versus
Yeah.
conditioning, and you don't want to put him in a position where maybe his conditioning isn't totally right, right where it is. So, I get all the reasons why they did it, but I also think my biggest pet peeve in the league is the fact that there are just teams that flat out don't care about winning that night's game, and I think it makes the league unwatchable in a lot of ways. I think it makes the league hard to dissect, like what's real and what's not, who's really into it, who's not. Like you almost on a nightly basis. I mean, the league puts out these injury reports every hour now, where you can log in if you're a member of the media and check who's in and who's out every hour, and it's like it's almost the biggest part of your job in analyzing the league is who's in, who's out, why are they in. Are they being cautious with an injury? Yeah. Is this a legitimate injury? Who are they going to play with teams out? And it convolutes being able to evaluate the league overall, which I think is frustrating.
I think where we can definitely agree is that it just looks bad, and it's dangerous for the league if we ever get to the point where people start to think they don't even care about the regular season. That's not true, but there are some instances where clearly it's like, this game is not as important to us in the big picture. Well, wait a minute then. Why am I paying to see you play that game? That's the big issue for fans and for the league. The league has to make sure people don't start to see it that way. It's like, they're not even playing, so why should I care if they don't care?
And I think there are a lot of people that do view it that way. And I just, there are just these regular season games that, games like the Warriors-Celtics game where both teams are locked in, it's intense, it's competitive. There's maybe 5 games, and 5 I think is a high number, a week in the whole league.
Yeah, that is probably a little high.
They're like that. It's probably more like 2 or 3 games a week that are that just well played, intense, fun to watch. And there's certain teams that care more than others, so you try to focus in on those teams. And the Warriors, to their credit, hadn't done this as much as other teams had done it, and now I think their players are winning another championship and some of the injuries that they've had, they're more all in doing it, and it just becomes a planned part of the schedule of, all right, there's going to be 10 of these. Like you're basically, instead of 82, your main guys, it's probably more like 75.
Yeah, well, I know Steve Kerr last night.
But then you also get real injuries involved. See, that's the other part is there's going to be real injuries. So there's the games where guys are resting and load managing, but then there's also the real injury games where teams are playing shorthanded, and then those games are not what you want to see. And it's just from a viewership standpoint, from a fan standpoint, from an enjoyment standpoint, like I love the 82 game season. I love the fact that there's a lot of games to watch, but when so many of them feel meaningless,
the product suffers.
The product suffers in a big-time way.
I was wondering why Steve Kerr said what he said last night. He's a very smart guy. He's a lot smarter than I am, and he knows that they're not going to go to a 72-game schedule because that means fewer games for TV, less money for players, fewer games for the team, so they make less money. He knows that, so why would he say that? I think he believes it, first of all, and also it's the best line of defense he has, because I do think he understands, and he's like, I'm sorry, but this is the way it is, and I wish we played only 72. He said it because even though he knows it's not going to happen, he believes it. But I also believe that if they did play 72 games, JD, you would still have players taking games off.
No, you would. Then 60 would be the new 70 as far as the ideal amount of games that should be played for your stars. And there would still and look, I hate getting wonky on this, but as somebody that is kind of a calendar nerd and a schedule nerd, and I do notice different patterns in different team schedules and things like that just by watching the league and covering the league on a nightly basis, there are plenty of days for the NBA to spread it out, but it's the freaking TV demand of you only want to have 2 or 3 games on you want TNT to have an exclusive Thursday night, so 4 teams in the league play or 6 teams play on a Thursday, and that means everybody's got to play on a Friday, and then you limit the amount of days that you have when you could just spread the games out because they want all eyes to be on the Boston Warriors game and not a team that's you don't want Memphis to be playing Dallas or something in Dallas on that night, even though for rest purposes and for spreading out the schedule purposes, you could do that because you wouldn't want the people in Dallas and Milwaukee or Dallas and Memphis to be watching their game as opposed to the marquee game because it just screws up the rating.
Pardon me, on the text line, somebody from the 559 suggests, hey, maybe they, make the rosters larger. But then, I mean, you've seen if you've seen some of the guys that are on the back ends of some of these rosters, you realize if we're trying to preserve the integrity of the product, expanding rosters is probably not going to help you in that regard either. And that also brings into play what happens if and when they expand. If you add 2 more teams, that's going to water down the product even further.
No, and again, I think it's just there. You could go every other day and just, but I still think, we got to play 4 games this week. Well, 3 is the ideal amount. But again, if they really wanted to do it, I think there are enough days on the calendar where they could play 82. They could probably limit the back-to-backs to, 7 or 8.
Would you start the season earlier?
No. The other thing is they give the players demanded this.
I wouldn't do that either.
The players demanded this, but they wanted a week for the All-Star break.
Right.
Which is another thing where, a lot of the All-Star players, and look, I get it, a lot of the All-Star players are like, wait a minute, if we go to the All-Star game, we don't get an All-Star break. We want an All-Star break. So now, and again, I'm fine. That's their right to negotiate that. I don't have a problem with that. But now it leads to there's no games for a week. During it's All-Star week now. It's not 3 days and then you're back playing on a Tuesday after the All-Star game was Sunday. You're not playing till Friday basically. There are a couple games Thursday to Thursday, but it's basically the whole league is off from like the Wednesday before the All-Star game until the Friday after. It's like a 9-day break for a lot of teams.
A week to manage your load.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And then it's like, so because you take a week at the All-Star break, then you come back 9 days later, you play on a Friday and a Saturday, and guys can't play on the Saturday? Like, you have to make up the game somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, my whole thing would be, well, why can't you just play, take the normal 4-day All-Star break and play every other day? It's convoluted. It's about greed and money, frankly, the way that they do it, and with the exclusive games on TNT, and NBA TV's gets their games this night, and ESPN gets their games this night, and the local markets get their games this night. I mean, there's a reason why there's a reason why the nights where there's the most games are Wednesdays and Fridays and not Tuesdays and Thursdays.
All right.
And that screws the whole thing up on a grand scale. 888-957-9570. We got some people that want to squawk, so let's go to Lee in Fairfield. We'll get to the phones here on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Lee?
Guys, good morning. Wouldn't it have been nice had the Warriors star players taken off tomorrow at a home game? Load management should be restricted to home games because a lot of times the teams, the guys that are coming into town, sometimes you might just really want to see Kyrie. Maybe you just really want to see LeBron, and you would be okay taking a break from seeing Steph, taking a break from seeing Clay. But when you're on the road, the league should implement, you can't load manage when you're on the road.
Lee,
you cannot load manage when you're on the road. It would have been perfect for one of them, for that group to have taken off tomorrow because it's a home game.
You can load manage, but you can't road manage.
Yeah, honestly,
I thought they actually did something about that, or they tried to, but obviously it didn't stick.
Well, what they did was the national television games, the league came out and basically said, if you've got a back-to-back and you want to load manage the non-nationally televised game. Which, again, think about that for a second. The league telling teams which games are more important than other games.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what you've seen with situations like the Warriors were not on national television last night, and obviously it's the end of the road trip, so it makes sense. But if you were picking 2, it would be, well, you got to play your guys in Boston. You can give them the Cleveland game off.
Yeah,
because that's not. Here's the other part, and a lot of people come in and say, hey, this is, it's tough for the Cleveland fans and people that paid, and even Warrior fans in the Midwest that may have said that's the game we're going to go to see the stars on this night. Like, I get that, but the reason why teams don't do it at home is because if the Warriors started not playing Steph and Clay and Draymond and Wiggins at home, the Warrior fans would complain about it. Like, and it would affect the bottom line of the Warriors. And so they would never do that. And I think that's why you've seen the Warriors not do that, is because they want their fans who are paying premiums to go to Chase Center to be able to see their stars as often as possible. And who cares about Denver or Cleveland or Minnesota or New Orleans? You'd much rather have those fans complaining, or road Warrior fans complaining, as opposed to those that are filling your arena, buying your season tickets to see the team at Chase.
And speaking for a guy who had to only watch the Warriors come once a year to Atlanta, that's brutal when you're spending $300 thinking they're coming, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we got Barbosa and them in the house. Like those were brutal days.
Yeah, it's tough. There's no doubt, and it is unfair, but it's also the nature of sports. It's the nature of you don't know. You buy a ticket, you don't know who's going to play. It's not a play. It's not a show.
I believe the league, at the very least, at one point, to Lee's point there, I think they did at least try to discourage teams from resting guys on the road. But Adam Silver said last summer, he said, I'm not looking to shorten the season, but it's a conversation we should all have. What's optimal in terms of number of games on a player's body? Let's be realistic about that. That was just in July 2022, because he recognizes that it is a real issue. And last night was a glaring example of how it's just a really bad look for the league.
888-957-9570. Michael in Oakland next here on Warriors This Week. A lot of people don't want to talk about this, so we'll do it, Michael. You're on with JD and Whitey. What's going on, brother?
Hey, if you take off a game, you should have to take off an entire week. You shouldn't be able to take off one game.
Okay, that's another interesting suggestion.
What if a guy's legitimately hurt, misses a game, and then it's like, I'm good to go, I can play? Why would you not want him to play? It's very difficult.
See, that's my rule with like soccer. You see how they be falling on the ground and magically get up 30 seconds later. I'm like, if you're hurt, get off the field. So if you can't play, you can't play. You're hurt. All right, rest up for a week. You can't play. That gets rid of low management.
But the downside of that is you're going to have guys who can play who won't play.
Right.
And you're also going to have guys who shouldn't be playing because they're hurt who are going to play. So I understand what we're trying to do there, but I don't know that helps.
The bottom line is the NBA and teams are covered in this because they can always claim it's about player health and safety. And right. And Steiny brought up this point a couple of years ago, and I think it was a really good point. It was something I had not thought of, and it's the fact that he believes and that in the NBA now, as far as superstar players go, there's almost a cachet now that comes with being a player that's good enough as your career goes on to be load managed. Like it's almost a sign of respect.
And Kawhi Leonard must be really good
in the league. And look, I think Steph among star players probably hates it the most. And understands why he does it. And so I think that's, again, another area where Steph's a little bit different, although he rolls with it because it's for the better of his career. And the Warriors believe that over the long haul, it helps him. But, Steiny believes there's almost I want to be a guy that doesn't have to play every game because I'm just that important to the team that it's a level of, it's also a level of, maximizing your investment in terms of your money. Like max player. I'm a max player, and I only play 65, man. Like, that's...
I do think there are legitimate reasons why you want to rest guys, sometimes a lot. I do. Baseball, 162, when a guy takes a day off, we understand that. Football, you only have 17 games now. You want to play if you can play it if you're hurt. Basketball, I think, is somewhere in the middle there, and I do think we have to change the way we think about it, and assuming that everyone should play 82, I'm not sure that's the best approach if we want to see the players at their best. And I think we're kind of in that area where we're struggling with that, too. I know I'm in the minority, but I do think that.
Dave in San Jose on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Great show, as always. Regarding this issue, I think the root cause is that of all the sports, the regular season in the NBA is the most devalued. And I think, if anything, the play-in tournament has hurt that. Because now you've gone to 10 teams, and you got a lot of teams thinking, hey, if we get in that play-in tournament, we can win that. So I think, and this is probably the longest of shots they'd ever do this, but I think the way to value the NBA season again is go back to that pre-1980s playoff format where 6 teams made the playoffs. 1 and 2 got byes, 3 played 6, and 4 played 5 in a best of 3. And then after that, you were in your final 8 in each conference. And while the knee jerk is, that's less games, less money. The reality is those 1 versus 8 and 2 versus 7s are almost always sweeps anyway. So you're still almost getting the same amount of games in that first round. And then when a student getting your guys' thoughts on that. And then secondly, this is probably a show in itself, but how did we get here? I mean, you look at Bird, Celtics, Magic's, Lakers, Jordan's, Bulls, when the league was more physical, travel was worse. Nobody did this. So why does this state of the league, why do they need it now? Interested in getting your thoughts. Thanks, guys.
And thanks for the call, Dave. I know there was the back and forth that I don't know if you saw it this week with Stan Van Gundy and Kevin Durant, which was kind of funny. Van Gundy was talking about the load management and the injuries being up.
Stan be spitting.
And KD had said Stan be spitting, and Stan thought that KD was coming down his road, and he was not. But it's kind of along those lines of, hey, there used to, and Stan, I'm paraphrasing, but hey, there used to be a couple, one trainer and a lot harder practice time, and the regular season was valued more, and there were seemingly fewer injuries. Were there fewer injuries? Were there guys playing through more things that maybe they shouldn't have been playing through? To me, this is a case of the science and the doctors. And I for those, I shouldn't have done that like I was being sarcastic, but the science of it, I did the quote, the science of it. Air quotes. But the science of it dictates that there's a benefit to
and there's more money involved, so there's more motivation to protect your investment. I think the short answer, how did we get here, is just that, let's see, it was Dave, pardon me. Dave mentioned guys like Jordan and Magic. Those guys didn't want to sit out. They did not. Jordan did not want to miss a game. When he came back with the Wizards, he probably could have played longer had he said, you know what, my knees hurt, I'm going to sit. But no, he was like, no, I have to play. So the players then didn't want to miss a game. Now players realize, or they believe, okay, if I sit out some games, I'm going to have a longer career, I'm going to make more money. So that's how we got here. Players look at it differently than they did then. Now players want to sit out and think it's beneficial. Back then, players, maybe they were just wrong, maybe they were sturdier, I don't know, but back then, they did not want to sit out, and that's how we got here.
All right, he's Whitey Gleason. I'm John Dickinson. 888-957-9570. Fred, Austin, Alex, Roger, Mike. We got full phone lines. We'll continue the conversation. It is Warriors This Week. We got 2 hours to come here on 95.7 The Game.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online, and it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at Video Only. Don't believe it? Then check out the trade-in deals at Video Only. How about $500 for your old TV? Try doing that online. Before you buy that new TV, drop into Video Only. If you don't, you'll be sorry.
If you own a business, this has been a bumpy ride. From pandemic to inflation, I'm sure you could use a break. If your business has 5 or more employees and survived COVID, you might be eligible to receive a payroll tax refund of up to $26,000 per employee. The challenge is getting your hands on it. Hi, I'm Howard Mackler, and that's why I founded GetRefunds.com to cut through the red tape and get you that money. The team of tax attorneys we have put together are highly trained in this little-known payroll tax refund program. We do all the work, charge not a dime up front, and simply share a percentage of the cash that we get for you. Businesses of all types qualify, including those who took PPP, nonprofits, and even those that had increases in sales. We have helped return over $1 billion to businesses, and we can help your business too. Just go to GetRefunds.com and answer a few questions. This payroll tax refund is only available for a limited period of time. Don't lose out on up to $26,000 per employee. Go to GetRefunds.com. That's GetRefunds.com.
There's something about that polished green stretching across the 8th hole that whispers, just tell them you're at lunch. Because it's not a hobby, it's a peace of mind. Let CertaPro painters bring the same tones and peace of mind to your home. Our experienced painters are here to make your next painting project as carefree as a day on the green. To get your painting project started, go to CertaPro.com. That's Certa with a C.
Each CertaPro painter's business is independently owned and operated. License information available at CertaPro.com.
The Manufacturers RV Show is back. See hundreds of RVs from dealers all over the West Coast. Don't miss the 34th Annual Manufacturers RV Show at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in Pleasanton. January 21st through the 29th.
The other day, I bought a cockatoo. He's a handful, but I'll manage. Just like I manage without home internet. Sure, my mobile hotspot is slow and makes streaming shows unbearable, but I'm making do. Oh no, who's this?
It's mating season, Dad!
No home internet? It's not that bad!
Don't settle. Get Xfinity Home Internet for just $19.99 a month for 1 year with a free streaming box. Call, click, or visit a store today. Restrictions apply. Not available in all areas. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. After 12 months, regular rates apply. Offer ends 2/21/23.
Visit Friedman's Appliance in Pleasant Hill to see Signature Kitchen Suite's full line of luxury built-in appliances, including the first Pro range on the market with built-in sous vide, induction, and gas all on one cooktop. And now it's easier to build the kitchen of your dreams with the Dream Suite Savings Program with additional bonus rebates. You can see all of the Signature Kitchen Series appliances displayed beautifully in live working vignettes at Friedman's Appliance in Pleasant Hill or at friedmansappliance.com.
The listening you love is on the free Odyssey app. Your trusted local radio stations, coverage of your favorite teams, live news from your hometown, and millions of podcasts on demand. Best of all, you can completely customize your listening experience. Follow topics you care about, like leagues and teams. Pause or rewind your local sports and news, and add shows to your queue to catch up later. There's a lot to listen to, so get started and download the free Odyssey app today.
Meet Joe A,
Hi.
Joe B,
Hello.
and Joe C.
What's up?
3 everyday Joes perfecting their banking with Chase. Joe A is locking his lost debit card with the Chase mobile app. Joe B is cruising toward his new ride with Autosave. And Joe C's Chase banker is helping him budget to go back to school. Tools that help protect, support for what's next. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Messaging and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
Are you ready? Every pro is an MVP to us. As a Lowe's MVP's Rewards member, you can earn bonus points when you shop select products and brands. Then redeem them for exciting rewards like tools, sports memorabilia, e-gift cards, and more. Join today to become a member and start earning. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. Subject to program terms. While supplies last. Points expired end of calendar year. Visit Lowe's.com/MVP's bonus points for details.
When choosing a wireless provider, you're forced to compromise. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could get reliable service without a contract and save money? Introducing Total by Verizon, a new no-contract, no-credit check carrier for you and your family with plans starting at just $30 a month on America's most reliable 5G network. Total by Verizon is available at totalbyverizon.com and at retailers nationwide. Based on first-place rankings and Root Metrics first half 2022 5G assessments of 125 metros. Experiences may vary, not an endorsement.
Wendy's knows cold and soggy fries are the worst.
So soggy.
That's why we're serving up hot and crispy fries all day, every day.
And all night until close.
With natural cut potatoes, sea salted to perfection.
Show me that potato skin.
Wendy's hot and crispy aren't like other fries. We're your dream fry. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's hot and crispy fries.
Guaranteed to be hot and crispy. If yours aren't, bring them back and we'll replace them.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMC-FM at HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
I think it was learning experience yesterday. It was something that we were very aware of. Kind of similar situation being up. I think it was maybe six minutes up to go. It's a close game, but we knew that we needed to lock down, buckle down, get some stops, try to execute on the offensive end and close it out. We did so tonight. Now we just got to build off of it.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Hour number 2, John Dickinson, Whitey Gleason, 888-957-9570. Talking some Warriors. We'll get into the trade deadline, which is coming up. Continue our conversation about load management, though, Whitey. Got a lot of people that want to talk on the phone line, so more phone calls coming up here momentarily. Warriors going load management in Cleveland.
And getting the win.
And they get the win, which is obviously the best of all worlds, unless you were a Cavaliers fan wanting to see Steph Curry or a Warriors fan in the Midwest making the trip to see the Warriors against the Cavaliers. I know you had some information you dug up about
the NBA
league mandates.
Mm-hmm. The NBA instituted some load management rules for the 2020-21 season. So teams
coming out of the pandemic,
teams not permitted to rest healthy players during games broadcast on national TV.
God.
or during road games when there are not, quote, unusual circumstances, end quote.
Okay.
Teams will be fined at least $100,000 for breaking national TV protocol, according to an NBA memo. This was 2020. Penalties for misconduct in games outside of national TV windows, like, for example, hey, the Warriors rested all these guys last night. Those penalties are less clear and might not be assessed. So, and then you've also got, well, what constitutes unusual circumstances? So, yeah, the NBA tried to crack down on that, but obviously there's a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, they only care about the nationally televised games. They only care about the ones that TNT and ESPN have paid big-time money for.
Definitely care about that. Yeah.
And, it had become a problem because, and now I do think they try to trick the schedule around that. They try to create off days leading up to those games that create inequities in the schedule in other areas, which is part of that's part of why you end up with games like last night happening so much, is because, why couldn't, and look, I know there's a million different things that go into building a schedule and arena availabilities and all that other junk, but why couldn't it have been as simple as the Warriors play last Friday in San Antonio, Sunday in Chicago, Tuesday in Washington, D.C., not Monday, Thursday in Boston.
Got to have that holiday game.
Thursday in Boston, tonight in Cleveland, and then you kick the Brooklyn game to Monday, which gives you another day coming back, because the Warriors then don't play till Wednesday. Because that's the other part of this. Yeah, load managed last night into the trip. Nobody play. Oh, got to worry about that Sunday game. Well, then you don't have another game till Wednesday. That's not right either.
Arena availability?
Maybe.
Does that come into play
but
a little
you
bit?
can fix, you can figure that out. You can figure that out. I did a little bit of math during the break. And by the way, as far as load management and resting, this should also be pointed out. The injury report for yesterday was not Steph Curry rest, Klay Thompson rest, Draymond Green rest, Andrew Wiggins rest, out. The injury report was Steph Curry left hip tightness. Klay Thompson was injury rehab management. That's obviously its own situation. Draymond Green, right big toe soreness. Andrew Wiggins, left foot soreness. So there also becomes this issue
James
of
Wiseman, even injury, illness, left ankle sprain.
Yeah. But there's also this. Well, he's been out with an ankle. Like
Right.
He wasn't part of the
right.
load management.
You're
Iguodala
You're
was
right.
not part of the load management last
right.
night. But what I'm getting at is, if you can designate any kind of an injury, then it's technically not load management.
So Steph's thing wasn't even the shoulder? They didn't even list the shoulder? It was the hip, you said?
Yeah, left hip tightness.
All right.
So if you can come up with something, again, that to the point on what you read there from the league, are they really gonna, can they really quibble? That's where teams have this thing covered and players have this thing covered, because you can't make an argument against load management that is anything other than sounding barbaric, like go out there and play even though you're hurt, risk your career. Like, who's going to support that? Nobody's. That sounds awful.
Correct.
Even saying it. And that's the only thing you can say to try and fix it. And so I don't think it's going away. I know the league thinks that or the mid-season tournament's going to help, but I think the mid-season tournament's going to make it worse, because there's going to be some teams that are like, you know what? These are the games, because the travel can get a little wonky. Like, these are the games that we're not going to care about.
We have Mark
actually.
Cuban has already said we are not going to participate in that. So that and someone mentioned, hey, get rid of the play-in. The play-in and the eventual midseason tournament, those are things designed to try to make the regular season games more meaningful.
Yeah, and good luck with that. The other part, the thing that's been brought up a lot on the text line, we had a caller that brought it up who was tremendous. Make the rule you can only rest players at home. Well, again, you can always designate some kind of an injury, but I think if you start doing it at home, then your home fans and sponsors are upset, and then you got a little bit of a different issue, which is maybe the argument toward doing it, but I just don't think there would ever be enough pressure put on a league.
You're supposed, technically, by NBA rule, assuming those rules are still in place, that's how you're supposed to do it. It's just those rules are almost unenforceable, and I'm not sure how much the NBA wants to enforce them anyway. All
right, Fred in Pleasant Hill next here on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Fred.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on, man?
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about this. I appreciate it. And I kind of go back to the finals game and blame Adam Silver for the 74-game win season. I'd be interested to know if load management drastically increased after that, because I know it's not a direct connection, but to hold Draymond out of that game, game 6 or whatever it was, you could argue in my mind that ended up losing the championship. And then you fast forward a few months and there's an owners meeting and Michael Jordan says to Joe Lacob, well, that didn't mean anything because you guys didn't win. So it doesn't matter that you won all those games. And that probably shifted the mind of a lot of coaches, general managers. Why would we continue to really push forward in, like a regular season that it ends up not meaning that much? And that was a really exciting season. So I think the league and Adam Silver shot themselves in the foot. And I'd like to give a shout-out to my two boys, Declan and Theo, who don't believe in load management at all. They're all go all the time. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah, hat tip to them.
Two things there. It's an interesting point, and I thought of that. I thought of what you said, Fred, when we heard Steve Kerr last night. And Steve Kerr said, if you play all your guys and then you come up short, people are going to point to that and say that as a reason why you didn't win everything. And I was wondering if he was talking about that season. But there's two different aspects of this. There's one, resting players when you're going to rest them, and then there's just that extreme example of it last night was 4 guys, 4 starters. I think people would be more tolerant and have been more tolerant of this guy's resting here because he's got this or that. But when it's 4 starters in one game, that's obviously a red flag.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Gregg Popovich is at the head of this too, because Gregg Popovich, who is widely considered to be the greatest coach in the history of the NBA, he made it acceptable. Like the Spurs were really the first ones to do it,
and they first did it on a nationally televised day,
in a grand scale. And the league, I think at one point, I want to say the league fined him $250,000 or something.
Commissioner Stern was not a big fan,
but yeah, Commissioner Stern was not a big fan, and it was and essentially Popovich gave him the bird and said, "We're going to do that." And that was, if you recall, that was in the era of Duncan and Tony Parker and Ginobili as they were getting older, toward the end, and the Spurs would have, some nationally televised games wedged in, and you see these all the time. Now, again, the league now doesn't have the nationally televised games wedged in, but if you look, there's often another game wedged in that doesn't totally fit next to or around the nationally televised game. And just look at this week with the Warriors, like that game in Cleveland just tucked away at the end there, after the Boston game. I mean, that's how they do it from time to time. But Popovich is the one, and I think that's part of it. Like if Popovich can cite the doctors and the science and be unafraid to do it as the dean of NBA coaches, then I think that makes it acceptable for other organizations to do it as well. If the model franchise in the league, which the Spurs were for a decade and a half, if they are cool doing it and think it's the right thing to do, then other organizations are going to follow.
It was 2012, and he was fined. November of 2012, it was the Spurs
and the Heat.
Yep. It was a Thursday nationally televised game, and he was fined $250,000, and the Heat ended up winning that game by only 5. So that was kind of the beginning of this, yeah.
Yeah.
November of, I think it was 2012.
So, yeah, it goes back about a decade, and then since then, there's been this back and forth every year about the schedule and how do you make it right, and the nationally televised games and the networks kind of won out, but it creates, like I said, an inequity in other areas as far as the schedule where, yeah, all right, you're going to get your precious nationally televised games as close to full strength as possible, but there's going to be games around those that are going to be, ones where a lot of players are out.
It was Tim Duncan, Manu, Tony Parker, and Danny Green, and Pop actually sent them.
Yeah, they didn't even go. Right.
Sent them back to San Antonio.
So it was an FU.
Yeah.
It was a big FU.
Yeah, they didn't tell anybody that they were doing it either.
And, David Stern didn't like it.
He didn't.
And so he hit him with that big-time fine, but load management, and again, anytime you can cite player health and safety, you just there's almost no no argument.
We give. You're right.
There's just no argument against it. And the only thing you could try to do to mitigate it is shorten the season, which I don't think would work because I think it would 72 out of 82. Now it'll be 60 out of 72.
You're right. I agree with that completely.
I think so.
And I'm also with you. There's 82. We've had 82
and there, you know
a long
what? Here's
time.
The other thing. There's enough.
There's a special number.
There's enough injuries as is to where there are too many games as is, even before the load management, where star players are out. And it just affects the competitiveness of the league. To me, it is the biggest problem in really professional sports right now. If in any of the four major leagues, it's the fact that it's the injuries and or load management with the top players in the league, to where the regular season on most nights just absolutely seems completely meaningless.
Well, if the games don't matter, then what's the point? Yeah, exactly.
And the expanded playoffs now, it's like there's more. Half the teams in the West are saying. Think about it. The Warriors are not the only team that's saying we can make a run and we don't care about the Warriors, the Clippers, the Suns are doing it. I think Dallas a little bit is even doing it with Luka right now. There are 8 teams, maybe 10 that actually play like they care on a night in, night out basis about the regular season.
I honestly feel if I want to see the Clippers at their best, the Los Angeles Clippers, not that I'm a fan, but if I wanted to, I feel like, I have to wait till the playoffs. I'm probably not going to, maybe a glimpse here or there, but otherwise, I'm not going to see them giving their very best effort and having their, I think they did play together last night. They beat the Spurs, but you're not going to see much of that, if any of that, until the playoffs are here.
No, and it to me, it creates continuity issues where, with the rest of the roster, I think some of that has been the Warriors' problem. We bookmarked this to talk about, and we ended up getting on the load management, but there's something to the disconnect, I think, between the core champion players and the rest of the Warriors roster, to where these guys feel like they and again, I get it, there's no expectation. The expectation last night for the guys that were out there was, hey, go out there and compete and don't lose by 30. And they got off to a hot start, and the Cavs didn't take the game seriously, and they played an exceptional game, and they ended up earning a win. Hat tip to them. But there's something to bench players getting those opportunities with no expectation of success. It's a zero downside game in a way for the Warrior players. It's a zero upside game in a way for the Cavs, because the only thing you can do is lose or win close, and then it looks like you didn't even really win. And so I do think that affects some of the competitiveness in games like that.
Now, the point you just raised, as I said, I think it's really interesting about a disconnect. I noticed that earlier in the year, and I really haven't been thinking about it much of late. But what do you see as examples? Why last night did that come to mind for you? What are you seeing in terms of that disconnect? Which, again, I think is a really interesting issue with this roster.
I just think it's you look at the guys that are able to play, and I think this is normal for most role players.
They play
but
differently.
They just can't fit their game into, like, when you're going to get 35 minutes, you can just go play freely and make mistakes, but you're going to make some good plays in addition to your mistakes. And it's just kind of a normal game, to whereas, if you're JaMychal Green, for example, like I think it's harder to go out there and when you're on the floor with better players, know when to take a shot, when to move, keep moving the ball, that kind of thing. Just, I don't know. It's just it's hard for players to fit their game in a 15 to 20 minute box. And I think we've seen when the Warriors have had everybody, the pieces have not fit. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting. When the Warriors have had everybody, it feels like the pieces have not fit together as far as the rotation and the motivation of the starters versus the bench players. But when they've taken a couple away, the lesser players have played better. And so even on the homestand where it's no Curry, no Wiggins, and DiVincenzo's playing 35 minutes, all of a sudden DiVincenzo's making more of an impact.
Had some big games.
Jerome had some big games, but then you start to lessen their roles. You bring the other players back into the fold, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel like the roster is totally connected when they have everybody.
Yeah, that's
and the expectations are when you have everybody championship. Like, nobody's thinking about a freaking championship last night.
I think Kuminga has made great strides in that regard. Now, last night he didn't have to fit into the veterans and the core players, but I think you go back earlier in the year, we had a lot of conversations about how Kuminga maybe maybe it just doesn't fit. I think he's found ways, and last night he did have a chance to stretch his wings a little bit more, but I think he's learned how to fit into that. DiVincenzo, to me, has looked pretty fearless. Early in the year, he didn't play very well, and I think he pulled a quad or something, but I think he's a guy who's been going out and just sometimes I feel like, hey, stop shooting, but he's been pretty fearless. So I think there's been less of that, but you can't help but notice that last night some of the guys Anthony Lamb, where does this guy come from? Lamb and Jerome last night, as I said, and Green, they were almost like all-stars, and you don't always see that when you have your full group.
Austin and San Jose next year on Warriors This Week. What's going on, Austin?
Hey, fellas, good morning. Whitey, thanks for taking us down that rabbit hole of load management, man. That's crazy. But listen, and JD, by the way, was the only one that didn't think Kuminga fit. I mean, nobody else was that crazy. Everybody else knew that Kuminga was the real deal except JD. I'll just leave it at that.
Whoa, Austin, I'm not. What are you talking about? Like, seriously, I'll give you an opportunity to explain that, but what are you talking about?
No, I kind of joke with you back and forth. I think you know that, but you were kind of hard on Kuminga, man, as I recall months ago, and saying that I think you even said at one time that you thought that Wiseman was ahead of Kuminga. I mean,
no, I don't think I've said that.
Well, you said something early in the year about you thought that early in the year that he was ahead of him in terms of where he would maybe fit in the roster or where he would in terms of playing time. And I thought,
no, I don't think I said. And Austin, I'll let you continue on with your call here. The one thing I did say about Kuminga at the beginning of the year was that I don't think he was going to play as much as people thought he was going to play, and he didn't at the beginning of the year. And there would be 2-3 games he'd play, and then all of a sudden he wouldn't be playing, and everybody would wonder why. And the reality is, not necessarily fit, but he wasn't doing the things, Austin, that the coaching staff wanted him to do. They wanted him to do the little things, not the flashy things. He's done that more in the lead up before he got hurt, and that's why I think he's now more entrenched as that eighth man than he was before. But so that's kind of where I'm at on Kuminga. But go ahead.
We can agree on that. I'm not going to challenge you anymore. And I think that you explained it. I just thought that Kuminga from the beginning was the guy. But listen, on this load management thing, guys, I just think we're caught between the fact it's a star-driven league. I mean, I read the Washington Post report from Steph being back there. I mean, it was an absolute spectacle. The place went crazy. They sold out the arena, and it all had to do with Steph Curry. Let's be honest. So I think that's the dilemma with the NBA is it's a star-driven league. If you take one of those guys out, then it changes the whole concept of what you're watching, right? You're not watching the Warriors if Steph Curry's not there.
Right.
I think that's the issue. The other thing is I don't agree. I agree with Whitey. You shouldn't be resting 4 guys in the starting lineup. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't care whether it's the Warriors or anybody else. I think the Warriors need to look at that. They should have rested 2 of those guys maybe, but all 4. And then the final thing, guys, I hope you're going to get to the real topic today is what are we going to do with trade deadline, guys? I mean, I'll tell you my real take. We should go get a post player. It doesn't have to be a star. Go get somebody that can defend, rebound, and that's all the Warriors need, man, and put Wiseman in the 12th position on the bench. Don't play him, and then let's go, man. That's my take.
All right, Austin, appreciate it. Yeah, we are going to get into good phone call, and appreciate the back and forth and opportunity to explain, so things don't get misconstrued there. But as far as the superstar thing goes, I mean, Steph is the show. You do find yourself though in a problem of then you're picking and choosing, and which games do you want to not have this player versus that player, and I that's where, all right, you take the hit. It's all 4 at once. It's one game, and then that way you're not impacting multiple games by trying to spread it out. But I know there are a lot of fans that would say, well, wait a minute, pick the worst teams that you play in the league, and that's when you should do it. And only maybe do 2 guys in those games, and that's how you should figure it out. The Warriors are never going to do that. It's going to be about the calendar and about the science.
I wonder if it would.
Other teams do that though. Other teams do look at we're playing them tonight. These guys don't need to play. I think Cleveland.
I wonder if it would be beneficial to the league to shed some light on that whole process of how they make those determinations. I think we've learned a little about it here or there. It's possible that it would be so confusing that people would just get more frustrated with it. Maybe that's not why, but I'm wondering if they shared with us more about this is what goes into the decision, and this is why we're making these decisions, and this is what happens if we do it wrong. Maybe that's something they need to look at to try to get people to understand, all right, we know this is unfortunate, but there are good reasons why we do this. And you as a fan also, you benefit from it as well. I think maybe the league needs to look into that, because right now it's amazing to me that even here where the Warriors won, right? The Warriors won last night, but even here people, load management, I don't like that. And it becomes something that everybody has an opinion on.
Couple of text messages here. 510, how about back-to-back games only apply to the home team? So the only time you would play a back-to-back would be if you're at home. You would be the second of a back, you're.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you go home. Yeah, second of a back-to-back.
Probably scheduling-wise, you couldn't do that, but it makes sense.
And then the team coming in would have at least a night off.
Yeah. So
against you.
Less stressful that second night if you're already home.
Well, and also, again, putting the pressure on, if you're going to rest your guys, you're going to have to do it at home, which teams just don't want to do, because then you're affecting your own bottom line, your own relationship with your fans that are there on a night.
And Mr. Schedule, they already have cut way back on back-to-backs.
Yeah, it used to be.
The league has already done that.
Yeah, and I think
they
the
used
Warriors
to have like 4 and 5 nights.
Yeah, they've completely cut out 4 and 5 nights. The Warriors had, was it 15 this year? Was
14 or 15.
14 or 15 this year. I want to say at times there used to be 20. Like teams that have 20. And like you said, 4 and 5 nights and 6 and 9 nights was a thing. Hell, 6 and 8 nights might have been a thing. Or 6 and 9. No, it would have been 5 and 8, 6 and 9 was a thing at different points in time. Let's keep it rolling on the phone. By the way, you talk about Steph Curry being the show. I did want to make this note. The league came out with its most popular jersey list for the first half of the regular season. Steph Curry, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Top 5 top selling jerseys. Curry 1, LeBron 2, LeBron James, Giannis 3, Luka 4, Kevin Durant 5.
That's so sad that Kevin Durant's not going to be here tomorrow, right?
Again.
Yeah.
Again, the only time he's played since moving to Brooklyn was the game with no fans in February of a couple of years ago.
I don't think the Nets are as good without him.
Yeah, you think?
By the way, I think you're right. It's 15 back-to-backs for the Warriors this year.
So, I mean, that's a lot. And again, I did some math on it as far as if you take out the All-Star break, which they take about 7 days for, and you take out the fact that it's not quite 6 full months of the regular season, it's closer to 5.5. There's 163 days that you could play 82. So it is tight. You can't completely go through without having a back-to-back somewhere. But if you shorten the All-Star break, if you tweaked it a little bit, I do think there's a way. If you added maybe a week to the back end of the schedule, I think you could do that. But now they got the play-in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't know if you noticed, but the play-in tournament, they didn't take away from the playoff portion of the schedule. They took away from the regular season portion of the schedule to create the play-in tournament. Like they used to. Now the season ends on a Sunday. It used to end on a Wednesday. I know going way back it ended on a Sunday, but in recent times it ended on a Wednesday, and there would be no playoffs till Saturday. Now they just end the prior Sunday and do the play-in tournament. So they've lost 5 days there that they could add time to making regular season games more meaningful. They don't care about.
Also, one of the selling points of the midseason tournament, I don't know if that's ever going to fly, but one of the selling points is, you won't have to play more games. We're going to work it out where in some cases teams would play fewer. So if you're wondering, how can you have that if you're concerned about too many games? That's, this is Commissioner Silver. I think he wants it to be part of his legacy, this midseason tournament. But that's part of the selling point of that is, no, you won't have to. We'll work it out so you won't have to play more games. We'll fold it into the regular season. And I think a couple teams might end up playing fewer games.
I blew through the break that we were supposed to take here. So we're going to just keep it going.
Good.
And we'll just go exactly, Craig. We'll just do that and make it up on the back end. We got a lot of people that want to talk. I don't want to make the people hold through a break. So we'll just keep it rolling with Roger in San Francisco here on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Roger?
Oh, hey, how's it going? Thanks for letting me chime in and give my 2 cents because this is definitely one I've thought about a lot. I just want to say everyone knows it's a superstar league. I mean, these guys are tall. They shoot like, some of them can shoot like Steph, obviously Steph. But I loved last night. Like, as a Warriors fan, it was so great to see, that there are like fundamental, high IQ basketball players out there that can play winning basketball and that they got their chance to show it. And I think the league, the kind of silver lining of this load management thing and the 82-game season is that we get to see more of these guys. And, if anything, maybe for the front offices and for the fans, like maybe a little bit of that power that the players have right now will be lessened, because maybe even humbled a little bit, knowing that there's Ty Jerome's in the world, that there's Kyle Guys in the world, that there's Justinian Jessup's in the world, who aren't getting the opportunity to have the ball in their hand. But if the front offices look hard enough, they're going to find these guys. And I think that's good for basketball.
Fair enough. Thanks, Roger. Go ahead, Whitey.
Yeah, I get the point. I mean, when you compare Kyle Guy to Ty Jerome, I feel like you're kind of giving Ty Jerome short shrift right now. But I understand the point, and it's a good one. How about this, along those lines? JD, what do the Warriors have in Patrick Baldwin Jr.? They may have a player here,
Maybe.
huh?
Yeah, he can shoot it. Very comfortable
Yeah.
shooting the rock. And he hit a couple of threes last night.
Comfortable, smart, understands what you're doing at both ends.
No doubt.
Yeah.
He projects to be, I think he is, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this because I want to make sure I'm clear. I think for as early as he is in his career, he looks farther along at this stage of his career than any of the lottery picks that the Warriors have had previously.
Yes.
Like for somebody, and I know he hasn't played a lot, but for somebody in the first 3 months of his NBA career,
right,
he looks a lot farther along than Wiseman or Kuminga or Moody did.
Right. You're right. Yeah, you're right on both fronts. It has been, the minutes are very limited, but there's no question in his...
And when you can shoot...
200 minutes or whatever it's been, he's looked much more advanced than any of those other guys did.
When you can shoot, you can get on an NBA floor. Like, that's something that is absolutely needed for every single team. And he's somebody that, you got to make sure he's strong enough. You got to make sure he's able to defend and understand the system. But shooting really in today's NBA it's the great equalizer, especially with teams not necessarily caring as much about the regular season. I mean, there are so many games, and I bring up Sacramento from time to time. I know you watch them a lot. I watch.
They're a big story this year.
They're a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
They are among the most fun teams to watch. But every night it's 120 to 120 with 5 minutes to go, or 110 to 110 with 5 minutes to go, and it ends up 120 to 115, 125, 120, 130, 127. Like, every night it ends up that way, and they have a ton of shooting and a great offense, and they're horrible defensively for the most part. They let every big team they play score.
Their own coach, Mike Brown, says we can't play defense.
But they are a team that they have a ton of shooting and offense, and they do try to win every night. That's been
true too.
They've been relatively healthy. They're obviously desperate to make the playoffs for the first time in 17 years, and it looks like they've got a good shot of doing it. But the point is, when you have that much offense and you care even a little bit about the night tonight, you can be pretty good. And that's exactly what they've done. That's how they've threaded the needle level. Why are they third? Well, because they've been healthier than the Warriors and Suns and Clippers for sure. Otherwise, I think those teams. But they also have given a damn more than those teams have, which is why they are third right now in the West.
Well, that's one thing about Sabonis, and we knew that, I think, already about him from Indiana. He plays really hard. He's really kind of limited defensively, but he plays really hard, and he's set the tone for them. Speaking of
Mike Brown has maxed them out, by the way. Like, he has maxed them out. Like, he is, and that's a credit to, like, Mike Brown is if we're talking about them winning 46, 47 games, I mean, hell, even if they win 45 games, Mike Brown's a coach of the year.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what he can do, because in the past he coached like LeBron and the Cavs and Kobe and the Lakers. So the expectations were already so high. And here's with a team where the expectations were lower. What can you do? It's like, ooh, okay.
And his personality is perfect for that market because he's a little hokey. He buys into the light the beam stuff. He buys into some of the stuff that kind of gets the fans going a little bit. Like,
what I'd heard about him before he got that job, before he took over, was Some people in the NBA wondering if he was maybe too much of a players coach, like too friendly with the players.
Sure.
There was some question, can he get at, sometimes you got to get after players. And he has done that this year.
He has.
When it's been necessary.
No doubt. He's done a terrific job.
Yeah.
And again, I think you're right. I mean, they are, they're taking advantage of the mediocrity, but hat tip to them. I mean, they're one of the few teams that plays hard on a night in, night out basis in the regular season.
People wonder, how much do the Warriors miss him? And that's where it gets kind of difficult because he led their defense last year, and the Kings defense is terrible.
No, but their offense is the best in the league.
Yeah.
Like it is. And I know Boston, I think, had the number one offensive rating. The Kings offense is better.
They scored 100.
The Kings offense is the best in the league.
5 games in a row.
It's the best offense in the league. Like there's no doubt about it. You just watch them; they score effortlessly.
Well, it's like Warrior basketball.
It really is. And they end up on a lot of. I mean, there's nights where they are a 40-point quarter in any moment, and sometimes multiple.
They gave up 115 to Houston and beat them by 20.
Exactly. And so that's kind of where they're at. Is it sustainable as far as it doesn't even matter. Like if they get into the playoffs, they've had an incredible year. Anything beyond that, it starts to get a little bit skewed. Like I don't really think they're the third best team in the West, but are they the 7th or the 8th best team in the West? Yeah, I think they probably are.
What are the Warriors? What's your best guess? Where do they end up? How good can they be?
looking at, and I don't mean in terms of record, but just looking around at different teams, I think they could be the third best team going into the playoffs. I do, if they're healthy. I mean, I think going into the playoffs, I don't think they're as good as Denver or Memphis, but could they beat Denver or Memphis? Of course.
I still think there's some value in having home court in the first round if you can get to 4th, as they did last year.
No question.
I think that's really important.
No doubt.
And maybe they feel like, you know what? Yeah, we'd like to, but we don't need it.
But do they need it?
Win on
but
the
here's
road.
the thing: do they need it? And again, this is no disrespect to Sacramento, but would they need it if they were playing Sacramento as the 6-3?
Probably not. You wouldn't think so.
And so that's where, and I was talking to Steiny about this in the podcast. That's where I've started to come around a little bit on the just get in component. And again, I don't mean play in tournament. I've said 4 seed. That would be the goal, get home court for it. But if you're playing, it just kind of depends on who you're playing. If you're playing a team that really shouldn't be where they're at, or the seeding should maybe be flipped, do you? And then at that point, if you don't need it for the first round, you wouldn't have had it in any other round, maybe anyway.
I still think it's important, especially for an older team.
So yeah, okay, that's that. I mean, and then that's fair. But you're going to get rest in the playoffs too,
I know.
Especially in the early rounds.
Mm-hmm.
First round, you're probably getting 2. I mean, think about it. The Warriors have had in a couple of these, and I guess I shouldn't go back to 2019, but they had the same first round schedule last year that they did in 2019, where they started on a Saturday. I think it was Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday.
No, that's a good point.
They've actually, and some teams get 2 days in between games, and at the beginning of a series, because of the way they do it, you can get 2 or even 3 days at the beginning of a series in between maybe a game 2 and a game 3, as there's travel involved as well. And so I think that definitely benefits the Warriors.
That gets back to the whole conversation of how much does the regular season matter. You're playing for 2 things. 1, you're playing to get into the postseason, and 2, you're playing for home court. And if you're a team that feels like we don't really need home court, then the games are not going to matter to you that much.
Let's get a couple more calls in here. Joe in San Francisco next here on Warriors This Week. Hey, Joe. What's going on, Joe?
Joe.
Oh, we got Dory. Hey, Dory. We'll go to Dory first and then Joe. What's up, Dory?
Hey, JD and Whitey. I turned you on and you were talking about how, there were fewer back-to-backs and maybe fewer now going forward, 4 games in 5 nights. And it made me go back to my days when I was wagering quite actively, and I'm talking late 70s, 1980-ish, like that.
Woo.
And I would always seek out the scenario where a team was playing 3 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it was usually a good bet that they wouldn't win, they wouldn't cover, or they would lose, because 3 nights in a row is tough. But that was fairly commonplace back in especially in the 70s.
Yeah, it was. And thanks, Dory. Appreciate the call there. It was, and it's just a different era. It's just,
Well, and a big part of it is players weren't making that much money, and if you complained or something, or you I pulled a hammy. Let's say you're, a lesser player. I got a sore calf. You don't want anybody to know that back then because all right, we'll get somebody else then.
Yeah.
That's how it's so different now.
Right.
Yeah.
It was more of the NFL mentality.
Yeah.
I think across the board. And now it's not. It's a very different game. The 2-4-0, Patrick Baldwin Jr., perfect fit. The Kerr system has size, IQ, skills. In my opinion, Bob Meyer's best draft pick, writes the 2-4-0. Interesting stuff. I think he's somebody that could, I don't know about making impact this year because, I wouldn't rule it out, but it seems like, they're bringing him along slowly. I know he's had some injury issues, but he, to me, could make an impact next year for sure.
Yep, I think so. Do you think the Warriors, getting back to the deadline, how likely do you think they are to part company with any of their young players at the deadline?
Let's get into that coming up.
Okay.
I think we're starting to shift gears. Let's get Joe. Can we get Joe, Craig? Yeah, let's get Joe here before the break, and then we'll come back. We'll switch gears a little bit. Good conversation, though, for the last 90 minutes or so on load management. Joe, you're going to get the final word on that this morning.
All right. Happy Saturday, guys.
Yeah, you too.
My thing first is Wiseman is PBJ is to Wiseman as Purdy is the Lance, and I think that's going to play out over time. Second of all, one thing no one's saying about this whole seeding, that these guys may clown around and end up in 6, 7, 8, but would you rather be playing Denver or Memphis first round when you're kind of fresh, or after 2 grueling series when you played 12 or 13 games for these older legs? I don't know. I don't think there's anyone can say one way is better or another. And I just want to say the final thing is this last night's game was kind of like what we've all been going through in the past month when we dig out our old raincoat that we haven't seen for a year and a half and we find a couple 20s in the pocket there. So it's just like, but and final thing is like, what is going on with Iguodala? And not in the condescending what is going on with the Iguodala, but what is going on with Iguodala? Does anyone have any confidence he can play 6 games or so in a series? And have a good day, guys.
Yeah, I think the answer to Iguodala, short answer, he's got a hip issue now, hip soreness, which he came back, he played a couple games, and his hip started bothering him. So
that's what he had last year, right?
He's not being load managed. I think, and I do think, and we talked about this a little bit last week, there's something to him coming back at the time when he did a couple of weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago today.
So they'd have an idea.
To have an idea of how, is he going to play 2 games and need to be shut down for a month to play 2 games? And if that's the case, maybe his roster spot becomes more valuable being used elsewhere.
Yeah, because you got to make a decision at some point on Jerome and Lamb, right? By the way, real quick on 4 games and 5 nights. In 2021, Memphis ended up playing 4 in 5. It was a compressed season. They played 4 in 5 nights in 2021. First time that had happened since the 2016-17 season. And during that season, that's not that long ago, right? 2016-17, teams played 4 games and 5 nights 23 times.
Wow.
2016-17, NBA teams played 4 and 5 23 times.
Wow. All right, he's Whitey Gleason. I'm John Dickinson. We'll pause here. We'll come back. We'll switch gears. We'll get into the trade deadline, just kind of the state of the Warriors overall. Warriors this week, 95-7 game.
Hey Niner fans, George Kittle here with a pro tip for making the best play on your eyewear. Visit Zenni.com, the official eyewear of the 49ers. Zenni has changed the game for you, finally making prescription glasses affordable for everyone. At Zenni, you can find over 3,000 frames with unbelievable prices. Look for the Kittles collection so you can rock our styles every day too. So visit Zenni.com, start shopping from home using their virtual try-on, and change your eyewear game forever.
Hey, let's throw a party this year for the big game.
Oh, great idea. But first, we should get a new TV. One of the top-rated brands, Samsung, LG, or Sony.
Okay, I'll start shopping on the internet and then head over to the Warehouse Club.
Well, but if that's all we do, we'll be sorry.
Why?
Because the best deals on those top-rated TVs are at video only, not online or at the club.
Video only?
Yep. we can save up to $500 if we shop smart.
Or we'll be sorry.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-200-1966. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-200-1966. That's 800-200-1966 for $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. 800-200-1966.
Conditions here are mint. Hey, this is Johnny Mosley with Saturday's Toyota Tahoe Report. You're not going to want to sleep on this Bluebird day at Palisades, so kick it into gear with your Toyota and buckle up for what's shaping up to be a legendary day.
Thanks, Johnny. We're expecting another mostly sunny day today. More variable winds may bring some clouds to the area in the afternoon. Temperatures will also increase a little with highs into the 30s and even low 40s. This report has been brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. Check out Toyota's full lineup of mountain-ready all-wheel drive vehicles. Toyota, let's go places.
Oh, it's doing great. I've been on it now for about 3.5 years. I've lost 67 pounds, and I feel better than I did at age 40. The only thing I'm just getting older. That's the only thing that doesn't stop. Other than that, I feel good.
Listen, we're all getting older, but that doesn't mean you have to feel your age. Are you ready to turn back the clock? It's 2023, and there's never been a better time to start looking and feeling young again. Introducing Andro400.com. Andro400.com has proven solutions to melt belly fat, increase mood and memory, increase energy, and bring that spark back to your love life. Visit Andro400.com or call 888-400-0435 to see which product is right for you. Try the safe and natural way to start feeling and looking your best. And there's nothing to lose with an industry-leading 90-day money-back guarantee. Visit Andro400.com or call 888-400-0435.
When you open up a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van, you're unlocking potential. The potential to do your own thing. Be your own boss. Steer your own success. Blaze your own trail. Each and every Sprinter van built, designed, and equipped to let you hit the open road and take on any goal. To help you follow your passions, reawaken that spirit of adventure, check all of those big, bold, exciting experiences off your bucket list. Owning a Sprinter van lets you live, work, and play out your dreams wherever they take you. 16 body types, a choice of gas or diesel engine, thousands of ways to customize. It's capable and versatile enough to help drive your ambitions. And now you could win your own Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van customized by Gretsch RV by entering the Dan Patrick Show's Ultimate Fan Van Sweepstakes. To enter, get official rules, visit danpatrick.com for your chance to win the Sprinter van. So go ahead, now's the time. Unlock your potential inside a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van.
From Carriage House to Glass Aluminum Doors, R&S Doors has a full line of commercial and residential garage doors and gates to suit anyone's taste and budget. Visit rsdoors.com. R&S Doors. Look for the red truck.
Guys, fellas, men, are you Roman ready for Valentine's Day? Right now, generic Viagra, aka Sildenafil, is just $4 per dose at Roman. Just complete a free online visit with a U.S. licensed healthcare professional. If medication is appropriate, Roman sends everything right to your door with free shipping and in discreet packaging. Go to ro.co/Viagra to get generic Viagra for just $4 per dose. Do it by February 8th for 20% off and guaranteed shipping by Valentine's Day. That's ro.co/Viagra.
I mean, it's just a night where a bunch of guys came in and played with confidence, played with force. Guys like Ty, JaMychal, Lamb, JP was fantastic. All these guys are, JK welcoming him back, and all these guys are earning roles and fighting for roles. And so when you get a win like this and everybody feels good about themselves and their own game, gives you a little boost. And now we get to head home after a long trip. So great night.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
All right, John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason, 888-957-9570, as we're with you until 1 o'clock. Good conversation, Whitey, about load management.
here in the first hour and a half plus of the program. Really took off. Appreciate everybody calling in, talking about that. But the Warriors did get a big win last night, 3-2 road trip, and now back home for Brooklyn tomorrow, and the trade deadline coming up here in a couple of weeks. And I just want to kind of get your thoughts and bring into the discussion where the Warriors are at as far as their rotation and what they potentially could do at the trade deadline.
You probably saw, I know you did, JD, you probably talked to Anthony Slater. Interesting piece he had in The Athletic about what the Warriors are thinking, and he shared what he had been told by someone within the organization about the Warriors' thinking, which seems to be they're probably not going to do anything major, and they may do something around the edges. I think they're still looking at doing something more significant, but I don't know that they'll be able to. I was talking last week about, maybe Pirtle, bringing in Pirtle, but part of the problem, I think, for any team that wants to do something major, teams are asking so much for players now. I think some of that has to do with how much success Utah had over the summer, getting a lot for Gobert and for Mitchell, and the price tags on some of these guys now are so high. I mean, John Collins, how long has Atlanta been trading? They've been trying to trade John Collins for a long time. So I think there are a lot of teams that like a guy like Pirtle. I don't know if the Warriors can do something there. If they did, it would be for a rental. So it seems more likely, JD, long story short, that if they do something, it's going to be something around the edges. Maybe something like someone on the text line says, how about Matisse Thybulle? I could see someone like that coming in if it didn't cost a lot, someone who could upgrade your defense. I don't know that we're going to see anything really significant, though, at the deadline from the Warriors.
No, and I think, could they use a big man? I think they could, but it's not the traditional big man. Like I know you mentioned during a break Kelly Olynyk, and I think Kelly Olynyk is the type of player that could help the Warriors in the regular season, kind of a pick and pop big man, somebody that could run the offense out on the high post a little bit and help stretch the floor, that kind of thing. But he hadn't guarded anybody, and he hadn't guarded anybody in a playoff series, and probably wouldn't be on the floor very much, if at all, in a playoff series. And so when you start to look at, well, how would you acquire somebody like Olynyk? And while Pirtle's a different player, somebody that could help on the offensive boards and on the interior a little bit more, he's not a perimeter defender either. And so I think both in their own way could be regular season helps, but do you want rentals? And I know Olynyk has I think a buyout next year where if you get out of his contract, you still have to pay him $3 million. Otherwise, he's under contract for next year. But I think I look at those two as regular season fixes, and for essentially rentals, would you want to give up a lottery pick, or in some cases more than a lottery pick might be the offer to try and acquire either? It just doesn't seem like the most efficient move for players that wouldn't be 16-game players in a postseason run for the Dubs.
The reason I mentioned Olynyk is because I know you have been saying for a while that you think the Warriors could use a big who can shoot. And that's two things they could use, size and shooting. And I was just trying to think who fit that bill. Olynyk was the guy I came up with. So I understand your reasons why you wouldn't want him. I just mentioned him because I thought, well, is that the type of guy that you're talking about? You're right. Pirtle and Olynyk, it appears, would both be rentals. I think you could make the case that it might be something the Warriors should look into if they really feel like they're close, and that is something that could help them win another championship this year. Because if you get rid of salary and you get a rental, one of those two guys, and then they're gone, you kill two birds. You're better short term, and then long term, you get out from under that salary crunch a little bit. I still think Pirtle would make a lot of sense for them, but again, it depends on what you have to give up. And as I mentioned last week, there are some reports out of San Antonio that the Spurs aren't that crazy about Wiseman. So then how do you come up with something that makes it worth their while to make that deal? So it still seems unlikely to me, although, again, I think I'm in the minority. Doing something for Pirtle, to me, that does make sense for the Warriors.
Yeah, and I just wonder if the price would be, I think it'd be difficult to palate if you're the Warriors trading, a guy that you spent the number 2 pick in the draft on for somebody that's effectively a role player that will go away. Like basically James Wiseman's roster spot will be gone this summer, and Pirtle would help you mainly for a run in the get to the playoffs more than he'd help you in the playoffs. Because I don't see either one of those players, Poole or Olynyk, who again I think are different versions of the same player. I think it's interesting because they both can help, but at the same time they're not going to be finishing lineup players. I tend to still view this thing as I look at it, Whitey. I look at it as you have and want to have who are your finishing players, and it's going to be Steph and Clay, Draymond, it's going to be Wiggins, and then is it Looney, is it Poole, is it Kuminga potentially? Could there be a player you acquire from the outside that could become a finishing fifth player in some lineups? I think the position of need to do that is more the 4, and I think it's more of a stretch 4 type that has a little bit of athleticism and an ability to defend than a true 5. It's in a way, it's kind of think Otto Porter, or kind of think, and don't laugh when I say this, kind of think that it would be the combination of Anthony Lamb and Jonathan Kuminga, a player that does a little bit of what both players do, can shoot it, but also can be athletic and defend a little bit.
Anthony Kuminga. Yes, it's a great thought. I still think one of their biggest issues going forward is defense, and I think everyone knows that. So there's a number of ways you can address that, but that's one of the things I like about Poole. And this year he hasn't had a great year defensively this year, but he has been in the past a decent to good rim protector. I like bringing in that dimension, but I agree with you. Overall, when you look at what it would cost, I don't know if that's going to make sense. And then, as you've pointed out, as people point out, the Warriors are so good without a traditional big at forcing your bigs off the floor. And then you got, Kevon Looney has just played so well. And as you pointed out earlier, they sent him to the bench. And then last night he comes up with, what do you have, 17? A ridiculous 17 rebounds. So I don't know that the need for that traditional big is there. I do think the Warriors are still looking at it, though. And I wonder, JD, this is just me talking, but I wonder if one of the reasons Wiseman is taking so long to recover from his ankle sprain isn't that the Warriors feel like they may have the framework of some kind of deal for him, and they don't want him to go back out there and tweak it again or get hurt and then jeopardize a potential deal. So that's something I'm wondering about, keeping an eye on.
Yeah, we'll see, and I think that's something to get into in the final hour as well, because I kind of wonder about that, Whitey, although I'll admit I hadn't thought about that specifically, that component, but I said something last night that really got people riled up on the post-game show, that I just don't see Wiseman able to come back and be a factor for this team this season. And I think if that's the case, and you think that this team is capable of still contending and winning a championship, and they're one smaller piece away, then I think he becomes right at the top of the board among players that you'd look to move. So I think, I know Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, wrote about that a little bit within the last couple of days. You mentioned Slater's article about what would the Warriors potentially be looking for. We'll get into all of that coming up. Final hour, straight ahead. It's John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason, 888-957-9570. Warriors this week on 95.7 The Game.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Nachos! Hey, I'll take some. And some Frank's Red Hot.
Nah.
You're just gonna eat these boring nachos with no flavor. Frank it up! Frank it up! This guy finally gets it.
It's the perfect blend of flavor and heat. Frank's Red Hot. I put that on everything.
Other banks go out of their way to make redeeming credit card rewards needlessly complicated. But Discover isn't like that. With Discover, you can redeem your rewards for cash in any amount, at any time. Learn more at discover.com/redeem rewards. Terms apply.
Trevor Noah has added 2 more San Francisco shows to his Off the Record tour, December 8th and 9th at the Masonic. All shows are on sale now at Ticketmaster. For your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Trevor Noah, head to 957thegame.com.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online, and it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at Video Only. Don't believe it? Then check out the trade-in deals at Video Only. How about $500 for your old TV? Try doing that online. Before you buy that new TV, drop into Video Only. If you don't, you'll be sorry.
Hey, it's Jonas Knox. Time for new tires? Trust the experts at TireRack.com. They've been crushing it for over 40 years. Go to TireRack.com/sports. Tell them what you drive. Try their easy-to-use tire decision guide. They'll show you the right tires for how, what, and where you drive. They've got the full line of Sumitomo tires, test results, tire ratings, and consumer reviews. Fast free shipping and free road hazard protection. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Hi, I'm Aaron, owner of California Deluxe Windows. Ever notice? When your neighbors get new windows, there is a large black eye of broken stucco, uneven plaster, and even mismatched paint. At California Deluxe Windows, we never leave a ring around the window. Why? Because we are one of the only companies in California who custom crafts every window and door to your home's exact measurements. Almost everyone else on the radio is a distributor. They grab a window from a warehouse, break open your walls, shove it in and patch things up. At California Deluxe Windows, we take pride in our work. Our installation technique is so precise, we do not break your stucco. Your house could be covered with potato chips and we wouldn't crack one.
Call now and for a limited time, you get 30% off your entire order and 24 months of interest-free financing. 800-874-3600. 800-874-3600. That's 800-874-3600. California Deluxe Windows. Windows engineered for life.
Certain terms and conditions apply. CSLB number 774518.
Every week, Damon and Retto go inside the 49ers locker room. The great Trent Williams.
He's always been regarded as one of the better backs in the NFL, but to actually have him and see him up close and personal, you kind of see why his reputation is what it is.
Hear a different 49er each week on Damon and Retto. Bang, bang, not a gang! Brought to you by Harris Ranch Beef. Visit your local Rayleigh's, Bel Air, and Nob Hill markets for all your beef and tailgate needs.
No H2O is the leading waterless mobile auto detailer in the Bay Area, offering a full range of detailing services. No H2O comes to your home, business, or wherever is most convenient for you and gives your car a great wash with no water. No H2O auto detailing is ultra convenient and gets great scratch-free results for your car. And remember, no water is used. Call Brian today at 925-238-8182, 925-238-8182, or visit them at noh2owalnutcreek.com.
Visit Friedman's Appliance in Pleasant Hill to see Signature Kitchen Suite's full line of luxury built-in appliances, including the first Pro range on the market with built-in sous vide, induction, and gas all on one cooktop. And now it's easier to build the kitchen of your dreams with the Dream Suite Savings Program with additional bonus rebates. You can see all of the Signature Kitchen Series appliances displayed beautifully in live working vignettes at Friedman's Appliance in Pleasant Hill or at friedmansappliance.com.
The Manufacturers RV Show is back. See hundreds of RVs from dealers all over the West Coast. Don't miss the 34th Annual Manufacturers RV Show at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in Pleasanton, January 21st through the 29th.
Better sleep can change your life. That's because sleep is a core pillar of health, just like nutrition and exercise. So if you're not getting enough of it, ZzzQuil invites you to take our Better Sleep to Better Health Challenge. Join today at ZzzQuil.com to get weekly sleep tips from experts and learn how ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, can help enhance your journey to better sleep. ZzzQuil's Better Sleep to Better Health Challenge. Visit ZzzQuil.com now.
By now, you know that sound. It's the sound of the Home Depot. But what about those sounds? Those are the sounds of an LG wash tower with ultra-large capacity, serving up a powerful yet gentle clean in just 29 minutes. Making this the sound of savings on the best appliance brands. The Home Depot. How doers get more done. Shop final days to get an LG wash tower now up to 25% off. Pricing valid January 5th through January 25th, 2023. Gas Dryer Extra. U.S. only. See store or online for details.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing and me go hand in hand.
nothing on my skin. That's my new place. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMC FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
It was difficult because I felt like I was just getting in the rhythm, and COVID hit me. Then I had the staph infection. It was a long wait, just stayed patient. It was tough. I missed Christmas, but I ended up getting to see my family, so it made everything better.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
JaMychal Green, as we welcome you back in our hour number 3 here on 95.7 The Game. Warriors This Week. 888-957-9570. As it is John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason. Whitey got a little technical issue right here. Talk to me, Whitey.
Yes.
We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Good.
You were on there. You may not be able to hear me through your headphones or the callers.
I know you're there, but I can't really hear.
And we're right here in the same room looking at each other. A little bit of a headphone issue. Welcome everybody back here. Hour number 3. 559 on the Xfinity mobile text line. You guys are doing great. Only took you 2 hours before the Wiseman slander started. And before the break, I mentioned, and you brought up a different component to this, and I think the big picture is, and Tim Kawakami of The Athletic wrote about this, and it's something we've been discussing for the last couple of weeks. It's how do you know whether this season is worth saving in a way for the Warriors, or worth trying to add to this roster because you think you can compete and contend for an NBA championship? I've been of the belief that we've known for a while, if this team is healthy, they can beat anybody in the playoffs. The question that I've had, and we talked about this earlier, is can they win 4 playoff series? Can they win play-in tournament games and then playoff series, potentially not having home court advantage in any of them? And that's where I go, I don't know. If they can. And so I think it's interesting because this team, though, and I think the Boston game does show you this, they still have it in them to fight and scratch and claw and be a problem for the other good teams in the NBA. It's more the grind to get to that point that I think is the issue. So along the lines of the question that Tim wrote about, is it worth sacrificing something basically to add to this roster? I think the answer is yes, with a couple of weeks to go and the West so wide open.
Here was my takeaway from the Boston game. One of my takeaways, because people now are coming after me about, did I mention Wiseman?
I mentioned Wiseman.
Okay.
I said before the break that I don't think he's a factor for this team this season.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We've had a number of Warrior subjects that we've talked about a lot, and we will continue to talk about. So you've got Wiseman and his future. You've got the punch, right? You've got the 2 timelines. You've got Draymond's future and the writing on the wall. You've got all of that. But you put that aside, because the real, to me, I'll say the rat on the table for the Warriors has been that too many times this year, and I think the game against Boston was the 7th time this year, their best players have not executed down the stretch of a winnable road game. That's the bigger issue. There's all those other things, and they have a lot to figure out. But when we look at, if they just get everybody together and healthy and they get in the postseason, they'll make a run. Maybe they will, but that's not nothing. The fact that 7 times this year, winnable road game, it's come down to the last moments of the game, last couple minutes, and they haven't been able to get it done. And Boston was just the latest example. I know that it's great that they played as well as they did. It's great that they won last night, but they had that defensive breakdown where Jordan Poole got lost a little bit, and then no one covered Brown, and he made the big 3. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I don't think it's safe, JD, and I think you're with me, to just assume that, you know what, they get in the postseason, they'll flip a switch, they can do that. Because they've still had problems this year that go beyond any of those other things that we've talked about a lot and will continue to talk about a lot.
I think they're a player short. and I think it's a bench player, but and assuming health, and that means Steph. That means then last year they had the top 6 healthy for the entire playoff run. It was Poole and Looney, and the other 4 were healthy. They missed Porter at times. They obviously didn't have Peyton for a stretch from the Memphis series until he came back in the finals and helped flip the trajectory of that series. I can start to see where Kuminga defensively can be a little bit of what Gary Payton II was doing. I think they're trying to get him to play in his own way a little bit more like Gary Payton II, not try to do too much on offense, really hound on the defensive side, be an infusion of youthful energy. They've cobbled together a stretch 4 type of a deal with Lamb. I don't know about him in the playoffs as far as defensively and attentiveness and things like that. I think
he's only like 6'6", right?
Yeah, he could be attackable, but he's more of a stretch 4 type, but he's small for being a stretch 4 type. So I kind of wonder about that. I feel like they are a player away. And the player's not a big, by the way, because you're going to play Poole more, and that, you look at the Boston game, Poole goes into the starting lineup and Looney comes out, and that makes Looney the backup center. So at that point, you don't really need a backup center if Looney becomes the backup center.
Well, forgive me for just reading from Anthony Slater here, but to that point, he wrote, the Warriors have greater interest in adding a versatile multi-positional wing rather than an extra big man, according to the sources that he spoke to.
And that's exactly what we've talked about for months, is the fact that would be, that's where I think they truly are a playable 3-4 wing that can defend and shoot and be out there in a finishing type lineup.
That might be buyout market.
That's what you got to target. And it might be buyout market. And at that point, how do you finagle the roster to get that player? Does Iguodala maybe not being a part of it become a factor there? Does the JaMychal Green roster spot become a factor there? Is Anthony Lamb a lock to get the 15th spot? If he is, then you have to free up a spot either by trading somebody else or cutting somebody else, or as a few people have said, if Iguodala ends up not being a factor at the point where he retires. I don't think Iguodala would retire.
What kind of flexibility do you have with Ryan Rollins?
He is on the roster. He is not a 2-way. He's under contract.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's we're beyond the guarantee point. So I think they signed him to a 3-year deal, I want to say. I think they liked him enough to where they think he could be a factor in the future. But no, he's on the roster. He would have to be cut or traded. I don't think they would cut him.
Right. Because it appears right now you would want to add Jerome and Lamb, right? Not to get carried away in what happened last night, but both of them, I guess if it was one or the other, Lamb would be the guy, but both of them have been so good when they've needed to be good.
No, they have. And I think that's where you're in a tricky spot, because you don't necessarily always need both of them, but when they have both been pressed into action, they have.
And Iguodala, you just don't know.
No, you're right. I always look at it as you start to, who the top 6 are. Well, the top 7 are, because DiVincenzo's the 7th. I think right now, Kuminga's the 8th. And is that a little fragile? Maybe once you get to the playoffs, but I don't think it is for the regular season. I think they're comfortable enough playing Kuminga as the 8th.
Because again, he's giving you something that's repeatable defensive energy, which is important. And for the most part, now it's to the point where you can count on that night to night.
And so the 9th becomes Lamb now, I think, is the 9th guy. Is that where you go in the playoffs? And then do you need another big? And I think right now the 10th is JaMychal Green, because he's and we'll see. So I think Lamb's spot as the 9th guy, don't know. JaMychal Green's spot as the 10th guy, don't know. I think Wiseman now, because it has taken him so long when he has come back off of these injuries to become playable again. Like, it's not just a matter for Wiseman of being, he's healthy now. He goes back in and play. When he was healthy before, he wasn't just going in and playing. And it took him, time in the G League and weeks on the roster for Kerr to just, I'm going to put him in for 4 minutes. I'm going to put him in for 4 minutes. And for like 2 games, he did pretty well in the 4 minutes stints. It's not like Wiseman had some explosion of being a major factor as a backup big.
Steve Kerr doesn't have a lot of faith in him. No matter what you think of him, or I think, or the callers think, Steve Kerr clearly just does not trust him as a basketball player.
He is not in that top 10 even at this point. And I think we're getting to the point where it's going to be so late in the season, to where I don't think he can earn that spot back because he's not going to play enough, and the Warriors are going to need to win these games. So it's not just going to be, hey, throw Wiseman out there and get his feet wet.
JaMychal Green's a really interesting case because I know we touched on this earlier, but if he can continue to play well, and he's dealt with a lot of health issues of
then
late,
he's the guy, right?
Then all of a sudden you may feel like, I think we're good. I mean, we'll look at the buyout market around the edges, but we don't really need – he's going to give us a lot of what we feel we need if he can continue to play like that.
No doubt. And that was what they intended, obviously. But he looked a little old, and the big thing is the three-point shot.
Mm-hmm.
If he could knock down the three, I think they could pallet the rest of it. So it all leads back to – if the Warriors do need to add, is it buyout market? How do they clear the roster spot for the buyout market if they're also going to keep Anthony Lamb? And do they continue to keep James Wiseman on the roster even if he's not going to be a playoff factor? And it looks like Moses Moody's not going to be a playoff factor. And again, I'm not talking about one game here or there. Like Moses Moody made, out of nowhere when the Warriors had multiple players injured and Moody had to play, he became a playoff.
He's kind of a
factor for a game or two.
Yes.
But there's a difference. I'm saying in the rotation at the start of the playoffs, he's playing if everybody's healthy, and he's not.
If JaMychal Green is anything close to the player the Warriors hoped he would be, is he the player that you're describing, the big who can shoot?
Yeah, if he can hit 35% from three, which. He hasn't been able to.
He hasn't been, but that's not unreasonable to think he still might.
888-957-9570. Let's keep it rolling here on the phone lines with Miley in Walnut Creek. What's going on, Miley?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me okay? I'm on my I got my earphones in.
Yeah, sound great.
Loud and clear.
Okay, JD, I love you. I have to tell you that right off the top.
Okay.
Dibs, I just love you guys.
But.
No buts. So my thought was, well, you want a butt?
Yeah, well, I thought that's where you were going with it. That's okay.
No, but I think I want to talk about Jared Vanderbilt from Utah, and him and Olynyk as a package would be the pieces to set us over the top, although it doesn't sound sexy. But Vanderbilt can guard 1 through 5.
Yes, he can.
He's not a shooter from deep, but Kelly Olynyk is hitting like 43% from 3. And Olynyk is a really good passer, JD. He would be in the playoff rotation because you could play him alongside Looney. You could play him alongside Draymond, whatever you want to do, because the guy can pass. He played in the playoffs with the Celtics back in the day, but Vanderbilt is the key. And he's only making like 4.9 or something like that. So if you could swing a deal with Ainge, who might be willing to take on some young guys to help him tank, because I think the ultimate goal still is Victor Wembanyama, but Ainge is playing it close to the vest till the trade line. I props to him.
I love Vanderbilt.
I do too.
I think Vanderbilt's tough. I think he's a rugged defender. Like I like
Both those guys are really good fits for the Warriors.
And Vanderbilt was somebody that you wonder, well, why is Minnesota not what they were last year? And some of it's Towns injury, but Vanderbilt brought a toughness to that team and a defensive mindset to that team that they just didn't have prior to that. So I really like Jared Vanderbilt. You're not going to play Olynyk and Looney together. You could play Olynyk and Draymond together some. Yes, you could. What I'm talking about, a finishing lineup in the playoffs. I think Olynyk is a regular season player for the Warriors. I think he'd be a great regular season player for the Warriors, where you just, an extra shooter, ball movement. He's really good with dribble handoffs. Like he can post up a little bit too against some, if teams want to go small, he could kind of make you pay a little bit in the post. He's just he's a solid player. I like Kelly Olynyk. I don't want to act like I'm not, but you want to give up James Wiseman for Kelly Olynyk?
Oh, I would do that in a second, I think.
You would?
Yes,
you would
I
do
would.
That. Okay.
Even though, even if it's probably a rental, I would still consider.
Yeah, and then he goes bye-bye, because part of it would be that you'd pay the $3 million next year to have him go away, but also so you're not dealing with a bunch of luxury tax ramifications.
Also, what goes bye-bye is I don't have to pay James Wiseman next year.
True.
$12.1 million times 7. I think Miley have made some great points, and I think it's a great point that Olynyk is such a good passer. It's just that package would be pretty pricey. And we just don't know about Danny Ainge and the Jazz. I don't know if we can assume they are going to be in full tank mode. We've been thinking that all year long. And here's the thing that makes them problematic to figure out. they already have a lot of future assets already. So we've been assuming they're going to trade off some of their veterans to get more draft picks. They might. That would make sense. But it also is true that even if they don't do that, they still have a lot of future assets that they've compiled. They're in a really good spot.
No, they definitely are. A lot of people, I don't know what this is in relation to, Whitey. Xfinity mobile text line. Whitey, you've lost your mind? Whitey, the sensationalist, had to touch that Wiseman subject? Damn.
I lost my mind?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Because you trade Wiseman for Olynyk?
Oh, yeah, that must be that. Yes, I would do that. I don't see if I go down the Wiseman road again, people are going to say I'm hating on Wiseman. But since we're having the conversation and you asked, I would be willing to get a player who I think has a really good chance to help me this year in exchange for Wiseman. I don't want to pay Wiseman next year. I'm to the point where I've given up on him as a guy who's going to be a useful piece for me. I could be wrong, but that's why I would make that trade.
Like at any point.
I mean, maybe down the road, but I'm fine with all the salary issues I have going forward. If I could get out from under what I have to pay him next year and beyond that, just in the hopes that he'll be better. If I could get a guy who's going to help me now, I think I would do that. I'm actually, by my way of thinking, I'm killing two birds. I'm getting something that helps me now and getting a head start on dealing with the salary crunch next year. I would do that.
Scott in San Jose next year on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Scott.
Hey, loving the show, guys. I have to completely agree with the last caller. I think a package for Olynyk and Vanderbilt would be great. And, you guys said it was a pricey deal, but that's why I think people like Ty Jerome, I like to call him G-League, him or Anthony Lamb would be perfect to throw into a package. Coming off last game and coming off how they've been performing, they'd be absolutely great. They're at peak trade value right now coming into the trade deadline. They'd be absolute great pieces to try and throw into a trade for Kelly Olynyk and Vanderbilt.
Thanks for the call. I don't know that Utah would. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Wiseman for both of them. We're talking about Wiseman
Scott's
and
talking
Moody.
about Lamb and Jerome for Vanderbilt and Olynyk.
That's not happening.
And I assume he means that you'd add something else in there too. But yeah, we all would love to have Vanderbilt and Olynyk, I think. I mean, I'm not speaking for you.
Yes. I like both players. Again, I think Olynyk is a regular season player as opposed to a playoff player. And again, that doesn't mean that he's not going to play at all. I just mean in the rotation every single game. That's what I'm saying. Like Bielitsa last year played in the playoffs and helped at times, but he wasn't in the rotation every single game.
Somebody says they would cost $19 million from the 559. Thank you. I'm not just talking about what you have to pay them. I'm talking about what you have to give up.
But they're also
to get.
They're
them.
also productive players. Like they're good players. Like you're not just you're giving what are you giving up that's a good player in return?
Right.
Because Wiseman at this point is not a good player. Like that's just the reality. He's a project. He's making $12 million a year.
They've got a young center in Utah that, and I know.
They might like Walker Kessler better.
He just put up a 2020.
Yeah.
I don't think Gobert ever did that as a rookie. So anyway, no one suggested that. But as we're looking at all the various options, I don't think Wiseman to Utah is really an option.
No, I really don't either. The 650 on the Xfinity mobile text line brings up Serge Ibaka. There was a report yesterday that the Bucks are basically putting Serge Ibaka in the Jay Crowder mode of, hey, going to be away from the team. You're basically done being a part of this team. Brook Lopez is playing well. They've got, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting my guy? Bobby Portis. Portis. And so he's not playing. He's somebody that I think the Bucks are going to look to trade. I don't see the Bucks trading Ibaka to the Warriors, although he looks like an older player that may not have much left. I actually brought up on Twitter yesterday that Ibaka could be. He feels like somebody that, like maybe Sacramento would be interested in Ibaka. I know they're looking for a backup big, and I've put it out there yesterday that I think Milwaukee would deal Ibaka to help him out and try to help themselves out, but I don't think Milwaukee's going to deal Ibaka to somebody they deem to be a championship contending threat.
Right.
And so Sacramento, I think, could be an option. Western Conference, it'll help you make sure you make the playoffs, but you're not going to come back and we're not playing you in the finals. So it's not going to bite us in any way, shape, or form.
Right. That's the conversation we've been having about.
He also might
Crowder.
Get bought out. He also might get bought out.
Why don't the Warriors get Crowder? Well, the Suns are not going to give you Crowder.
No.
Unless they realize or get to a point where they say, he can't help them. Let's go ahead. So if they would give him to you, you don't want him anymore. So that's not an option either.
415 Whitey, you have lost your mind. The second we trade away Wiseman is the second Looney or Draymond get injured in our next game. The reality, though, is...
Come on.
Looney could get injured, and
You think Wiseman you could plug in to do what Looney's done? That's science fiction.
Honestly, if Looney got hurt, and between now and the trade deadline, to me that would increase the likelihood that the Warriors would maybe give up Wiseman for Pirtle or for Olynyk.
I agree. I mean, it's a nice thought. I just don't think...
They may not want to do it because they have Looney and Draymond, but if they lost Looney, then they might be like, you know what, we have to get a center.
The people that are
then
coming
Pirtle's
after me...
more attractive.
Yeah, the people coming after me because they say I'm crazy. They see James Wiseman as close to what the Warriors hoped James Wiseman would be when they drafted him. And maybe he is that guy, but the James Wiseman I see now is not close to that guy. And maybe I'm wrong, but everything we've seen... I don't know how you can assume that James Wiseman is going to be that guy at this point from what we've seen. Some of it's his fault, some of it's not, but he's not that guy.
The other 209 brings up this on the Xfinity mobile text line. We don't need regular season players. So there's been this back and forth of do you need playoff players, do you need regular season players? I think in a way the Warriors kind of need both.
Yes.
And they're different they're different categories. Like I think for the regular season, they could use a big man that could shoot the three. Like I think Olynyk for the regular season would help him win a couple of games and take a little bit of the pressure off of. I think he'd help him more than Pirtle, to be honest.
I think they're both good players. Olynyk probably some ways fits the Warriors style.
But again, are you gonna give up the number 2 pick in the draft? Like just think about how difficult that would be for the Warriors front office to palate. You're giving up the number 2 pick in the draft, somebody who you selected because you thought he would be a star, and you're trading him basically to have the salary go away for a role-playing center that isn't going to be with you, a rental next year. Like, just in the context, like, I could see, like, if the Warriors just looked at that on paper and said, gulp, I don't want to do that. That's just a bad look. I could kind of understand it.
I could too, but aren't they going to have to do something that they don't want to do because of the salary crunch they're facing? When you look at who you have and who you're going to be able to keep, I think it's inevitable. Somewhere in there, you're going to have to make a move that you really don't want to make.
And so there's this, I do agree with that. There's the back and forth about needing somebody. The 209 says they need somebody that moves the needle. Well, you're not getting a star. You're not getting a star. You need
what moves the needle is winning another championship.
Well, and that is the answer to the question of, do you look at it and gulp a little bit about what you'd have to give up? But if you think that move helps you win a championship, then you do it. Because if you win if you win the 23 championship and you traded James Wiseman along the way, who cares at that point? Like if he was the 2 pick of the draft, because you would have won 2 chips since he was on the roster, basically without him. Like that at that point, like. And again, this is where nobody totally knows the thought process of the ownership moving forward. But you win the 22 and 23 championships. I'm sorry. Who gives a freaking rip about 26 at that point in time?
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And that's why, I think to a degree they're going to ride Steph as hard as they can. They realize this guy is he's gotten better somehow than he was. So as long as we have him, we have a chance. We're not going to have him for very much longer, probably. Whatever we can do to give us another chance to win with him this year. Forget about the future. If we have a chance to win it this year, I think that's what they're going to have to do. But I understand the reluctance to do that. And the point you made that moving off of Wiseman would be an admission, basically, of a fairly colossal failure.
888-957-9570. It's John Dickinson and Whitey Gleason. It's Warriors This Week. A lot of text messages about Wiseman and his impact. Like, people really think he could be. He's comes back and he's a part of the bench this year. What? Like, what have people been watching? Like he hadn't done that.
Drinking.
He hadn't been doing that at any point. Mitch and Tim, we'll get to you. One final segment straight ahead. Here on 95.7 The Game.
You know what? Let's throw a party this year for the big game.
Hey, we can invite our friends over, and I'll take turns yelling at the TV during the game.
But first, we should get a new TV.
Yeah, like one of the top-rated brands, Samsung, LG, or Sony.
Okay, so I'll start shopping on the internet, then head over to the Warehouse Club to compare.
But if that's all we do, we'll be sorry.
Why?
Because the best deals on those top-rated TVs are at Video Only, not online or at the club.
Video Only has better deals?
Yep. We could save up to $500 if we shop smart.
Then we could afford a larger model and really impress our friends.
At Video Only, you won't find huge stores with refrigerators or microwaves, but you will find the best deals on top-rated TVs, soundbars, and monitors. Shop around. Just make sure you visit Video Only, because if you don't,
you'll be sorry.
In Mountain View, San Mateo, Union City, Dublin, and San Rafael. Video Only.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-200-1966. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too. Call 800-200-1966. 800-200-1966.
Hey Niner fans, George Kittle here with a pro tip for making the best play on your eyewear. Visit Zenni.com, the official eyewear of the 49ers. Zenni has changed the game for you, finally making prescription glasses affordable for everyone. At Zenni, you can find over 3,000 frames with unbelievable prices. Look for the Kittles collection so you can rock our styles every day, too. So visit ZENNI.com, start shopping from home using their virtual try-on, and change your eyewear game forever.
Here's home improvement news for the new year at Dolan's. Replace those old interior doors with ones you design yourself. Create your own style with personal choices at Dolan's and doors that are made just for you. The door experts at a Dolan's showroom will help you design your own amazing interior doors. Visit the ideas section at dolanlumber.com and have a safe and happy new year.
Hey guys, it's a new year, and your New Year's resolution should be to get rid of ED and low testosterone. The doctors at Prime Male Medical have many years of experience, and they're the leaders in ED and low testosterone. But don't take my word for it. Listen to Dr. Robert Rowley.
At Prime Male Medical, we have virtually every medication known to man to help men. We specialize in treatments for ED and low T, and we have a 99% success rate. Most impotence problems can be treated in just one visit. We offer a variety of treatments, including high-dose sublingual lozenges, ultrasound-based shockwave therapy, and injectable therapies. We can also treat testosterone issues when needed.
There you have it, guys. Make the call. Why wait? Let Prime Male Medical help you improve your lifestyle. KCBS listeners get a PSA test, testosterone test, Doppler ultrasound, and a full year of free visits for just $99. Call now, 415-761-4037. That's 415-761-4037. Or go to primemalemedical.com.
Every week, Damon and Retto go inside the 49ers locker room.
The great Trent Williams.
He's always been regarded as one of the better backs in the NFL, but to actually have him and see him up close and personal, you kind of see why his reputation is what it is.
Hear a different 49er each week on Damon and Retto. Bang, bang, Niner Gang! Brought to you by Harris Ranch Beef. Visit your local Rayleigh's, Bel Air, and Nob Hill markets for all your beef and tailgate needs.
Tune in to 95.7 The Game for Warriors Live, 60 minutes before tip-off of every Warriors game. Brought to you by Xfinity. Supercharge your home with supersonic Wi-Fi. Unbeatable internet, only from Xfinity.
They say they'll get your biggest tax refund. Jackson Hewitt says your biggest tax refund guaranteed. And a chance to double your tax refund. Thousands in weekly prizes during the Double Your Refund sweepstakes. Your biggest refund times 2, twice the money, so forget about them. File your taxes on the double at Jackson Hewitt today. No purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to U.S. residents 18 or older who file a 2022 federal tax return. Promotion ends 4/2/23. Visit jacksonhewitt.com for rules.
Straight Talk Wireless knows there are plenty of reasons you might need a new phone.
but switching to a better wireless provider doesn't have to be one of them. Keep your own phone and save when you switch to any Straight Talk wireless plan, like our $45 Silver Unlimited plan with unlimited high-speed data and 5 gigs of hotspot, plus nationwide 5G. Keep your own phone. Switch to a better wireless plan. Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. Requires a compatible unlocked phone and KYOP kit. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See latest terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
Trevor Noah has added 2 more San Francisco shows to his Off the Record tour, December 8th and 9th at the Masonic. All shows are on sale now at Ticketmaster. For your chance to win a pair of tickets to see Trevor Noah, head to 957thegame.com.
I mean, it's just a night where a bunch of guys came in and played with confidence, played with force. Guys like Ty, JaMychal, Lamb, JP was fantastic. All these guys are, JK welcoming him back, and all these guys are earning roles and fighting for roles. And so when you get a win like this and everybody feels good about themselves and their own game, gives you a little boost. And now we get to head home after a long trip. So
now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah, the Warriors heading home, and quick turnaround for them as they've got the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow. No Kevin Durant.
Nets won a game last night.
They did win a game last night. Almost won in Phoenix a couple of nights ago, but did win in Utah, of course, last night they hadn't been winning much, but to kind of stabilize. Without Durant, it was getting a little bit like it was earlier in the year.
Kyrie went nuts last night.
Yeah, and so, Brooklyn's going to come in with a pretty good record.
You got to clarify a statement like that when you say Kyrie went nuts last night.
I was going to let that go.
I'm just saying.
Brooklyn 28-17, fourth in the East. So, I mean, they were playing exceptional ball.
Was that their first win since Durant went down?
Maybe. I know they've been out on the West trip. I want to say they did have one other one, but I'm looking at it right now. And
that's one you should get tomorrow. That's one the home club should get tomorrow night, JD. But it is, but never this year more than any. He's like, I don't know.
No, you just don't know, and that's the deal. Yeah, that was their first win since Durant went out. Had lost their last 5 going back to Miami a couple of weeks ago on the 8th. 888-957-9570. The 510. No one trolls listeners, other viewers, and the Bay Area than Kavan, JaMychal, Whitey Gleason, and his hot takes.
There you go. Text of the day nominee. I'm not sure what my hot take was today, other than that I don't think James Wiseman.
You would trade Wiseman for Olynyk.
Is that a hot take?
You would trade Wiseman for Olynyk.
I would.
That is what I think has sent the text line into a frenzy on this Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. For what it's worth in the Athletic, would you be willing to mortgage the future draft picks that it would cost, presumably Wiseman and his matching salary for one of those guys? It could be argued, writes Anthony Slater. That's all I'm doing is making that argument.
Well, in essence, you're getting rid of, and we'll get back to the phones here in just a second, you'd be
addressing the salary crunch, tax crunch that you're going to have to address one way or the other eventually.
You would be making the decision that the salary that may have to go away anyway is going to go away now. And so if you know, and the Warriors may know, that money is going away one way or another, well, one of the ways you go about doing it is by enhancing this roster with a rental player that might help them get over the top at the expense of money that you weren't going to be able to spend anyway, and you've already come to grips that you're not going to spend it anyway.
Here's my hot take.
Only they know that.
They're going to have to do something to deal with the luxury tax crunch that they would rather not do.
Absolutely.
They're going to have to.
Whether that's trade Wiseman or trade Draymond or somebody else.
Yep.
I think you're right about that. And at this point, I mean, would you keep Wiseman? If you could keep Draymond another year, another couple of years, let's say it's a reasonable number for Draymond. Would you keep Draymond? Would you keep Wiseman over Draymond? No chance.
Hot take. No, I would not.
And no chance. Like if it does come down to those two, I think the other one, and Tim Kawakami wrote about this too, the other one that could be in that equation is Poole, because of the fact that he was, I think, having somewhat of a disappointing season up until when people got hurt and they really needed him to score. He's been helping them more than he'd been hurting them this last month.
Definitely.
I know the fan base has been all over him. I think a little of that's been
just
irrational.
needs to lock the F in, which he's done a lot of late.
No doubt. But I think Poole's the third that could be in that category of for next year. Like Wiseman, Poole,
well, you
Draymond,
mentioned Tim Kawakami.
and I'd keep. I mean, again, I'd keep if it's hey, one person's got to go between Wiseman, Draymond, and Poole. That's an easy one.
Didn't Tim Kawakami just write? And obviously, he has a real good sense of what's going on. Didn't he write, JD, that of Wiseman, Poole, Draymond, one of them is probably going to be gone next year?
Yeah, that's it. No, that's what we were talking about. Like I added Poole because we'd been talking about Draymond and Wiseman, and then he had added Poole into the mix.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, it's. You just have to look around. I mean, it's logical to just look around at the roster and say, well, who are the premier? And I don't think you can trade Clay because I don't think anybody would take Clay for $40 million. Maybe 1 year, that. But again, why would you want to trade Clay? Obviously, Steph's not going anywhere. Wiggins has signed a team friendly deal, so. Who and how would you save if you? I mean, it's one of those. It's one of those three.
Mm-hmm.
And the Poole's going to start being a $30 million average player moving forward.
You mean average salary?
Yeah,
not
average salary.
You know how people are.
I know.
JD just said he was average.
Well, no,
he didn't say that.
Well,
he didn't say that.
People have held him accountable to being a $30 million player this year.
Huge win last night, though. And he was a huge part.
He was, and that's the and people turnovers and down the stretch and five turnovers and didn't make they need him. They've needed him. He's helped them win games. Like without Jordan Poole, this team's worse this year. And people scream and holler about he turned it over.
I do. I scream about the turnovers. I admit, but I know,
but the good has outweighed the bad. Like you can't just look at an entire game.
Yeah.
And a body of work and a guy that's making plays for you to help you win. And because he has a couple bad turnovers in the biggest moments, say, well, that completely negates it.
Right.
Because you got to also take away the 30 that he put in to lead you up to that point before he made the catastrophic mistake. And if you don't have that, you're not even close to having a chance to win the freaking
shot
game.
The three ball well last night, which is important. My issue with and I know we'll move on here, but with the turnovers, just he makes so many turnovers that I think are avoidable. That's what drives me crazy. Everyone's going to make turnovers, but he makes avoidable ones.
All right, Tim in North Carolina, 888-957-9570. What's going on, Tim?
Hey, Tim.
What's up, guys? Hey, Jay, Whitey, I done gave up on you when it comes to the Wiseman thing. So I just know you out on him. I'm leaving that one
all right.
alone. But hey, on another note, though, I really don't think, me personally, I wouldn't do anything. I mean, when we go back to the 7 to 10 games that these guys have lost by blowing leads and Steph with his one-handed throwing the ball across court and fading away threes when the game, instead of trying to get a dagger or two to put a game away. This mystery wing player, Olynyk, Pirtle, none of them would have been a reason we won any of those games. I personally think, if JaMychal Green, if you look at the way he played a couple of games before the injury and how he played last night, if this guy kind of brings this and continues this way, I like where we are. Now, that wing we're talking about, he's on the team. It's just that he hasn't been allowed to play through any of mistakes, and I don't know where Moses Moody's confidence is at this point, but Lamb and Jerome, from having the trust of his coach, have been allowed to play through mistakes all the way back from the beginning of the season. So now what do we have? We got two guys whose confidence is sky high, and we could have done that with Moody. We could try and do it with him. I mean, the guy was looked at as a guy we had confidence in last year in the playoffs. This team, the coaching staff has done a good job this year of tanking confidence of Kuminga and Moody. Wiseman, I don't even include in it. He's never really got to a point of even being on the court consistently. But we've done a good job of kind of tanking those guys. Now, Kuminga has fought through it. He's realized what he needs to do. I do include him in that top 8. But if we can get Moody's confidence to where he feels the way Lamb and Jerome feel when they get on the court, I believe we got that wing here. So I just think if leadership on this team is digging deep, if they could look back at those top 7 games and say, we were right there, we had this other score to put us across the top, we can do it. No, we had those games, and our core players had the chance to win them, and we blew all of them. I mean, you saw it last night on the screen when they put it there. So I'm not doing anything. And another thing, real quick, I mean, y'all tell me what you think. And I don't want to say this. There's no cuss word, nothing crazy. But, guys, from some of the antics with Jordan Poole on the court, the way he is with refs, last night, looking at Steve Kerr kind of crazy, I'm starting to see, and I never would have said this early, I'm almost starting to see how it can make someone want to punch him in his damn face. Now, I'm just saying, I'm not saying I agree with it.
Tim, I said it when it happened, and appreciate the call. And people were like, "JD, how could you say that?" Like, I said that when it happened. That
you're not advocating it or anything, but
it still was dead wrong, and it created obviously a bunch of problems that I think still exist. But that was like, it wasn't that hard to believe that somebody with Draymond's temper could be rubbed to that point. If you've ever been on the floor. I mean, sometimes it's the people you love most that make you push your buttons in a way like that. So, again, that was a very unpopular take back in October, but to me, that made a lot of sense.
Go back, if you haven't already, and look up Dame Lillard's story of when he first was introduced to this guy, who is Jordan Poole, and you can understand how it would irritate people. Again, that's not saying it was right what Draymond did, but you could understand why officials also get frustrated with him. I'll just say this about Jerome and Lamb real quick. The Warriors shoot more threes than anybody in the league, right? They're number one right now, 3-point attempts. Okay, so when we talk about players and their confidence, and these guys, they got a chance to build up their confidence. Lamb is shooting 42% on his threes. 42%. Ty Jerome's shooting 41%. Steph Curry's at 42%. So that's why those guys play. They make shots. Yeah. And that's really important to what the Warriors do. If you can make a three and they knock down big shots.
Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome right now are both better players than Moses Moody. It's plain and simple. They're just, and they're different positions too, which I think is part of it. Ty Jerome is more of a ball handling guard.
He's a combo guard. Yeah.
He's a combo guard.
Yeah.
And Lamb is a big. Like, they play Lamb as a stretch big.
Moody's a little bit of a tweener almost.
Exactly. I think at times he's not quick enough.
No fault of his own.
Not quick enough to be out there against guards defensively, and not big enough or long enough to be out there against other wings, which I think is, and he's not a ball handler. Like, that's the other problem. Ty Jerome is a ball handler, so there is, I think, a different skill set on display. It's not as simple as, I think a lot of Warrior fans boil it down to, Moody's got to get those minutes. Well, he doesn't play the same position. Which I think makes it harder.
Last year we had that conversation. People wanted him to be the player. Why don't they play Moody at point guard? Well, he's not a point guard.
He's not a point guard. Well, and he's at times a 2 that doesn't make shots and a 3 that's not long enough or quick enough.
He's had his moments this year. I'll say I am a little confused why Moody hasn't played more, but I understand why he's not playing as much as Lamb and Jerome.
Xfinity mobile text line. A couple of people here. Jordan Poole gets too long of a leash from the media. Interesting. I don't see that.
Well, he's polarizing because of the way he plays and carries himself, and some people rubs people the wrong way.
The funny part about
fans and, like you said, teammates and other players.
The funny part about Poole, and this is where it really is interesting. Like, I was harder on Poole coming up, and even last year, but on the come up of like, hey, let's be careful. He hasn't totally arrived yet. Like, let's not anoint him. But I think, and this is where it's interesting. I think the fans liked him. When he, I think they love the swag when he's cooking guys as an extra bit player, and he's got the swag and the brashness of the other championship players. I think a lot of fans liked him then and almost anointed him a little bit too quickly. I was a little more critical of his game then, or like, hey, let's wait and see. Then he gets paid, because it was time for him to get paid, and because the Warriors, he proved himself to be a real valuable asset to this Warriors team and a young player that's still growing and developing. I've actually eased on him now, and it feels like people are way more hyper-focused on, like, to me, he's more established now than he was 2 years ago when he was just kind of cooking people and laughing, but it seems like Warrior fans enjoyed that Jordan Poole a lot more at a bargain price.
He is
when he was a find.
He's a frustrating player because sometimes he's so good and he's still inconsistent.
Well, here's the thing: he's not an all-star and he's not a superstar,
right?
And I get it if it bugs you that he's going to make $30 million and he's not an all-star or a superstar and he acts kind of cocky. Like, I can understand that rubbing you the wrong way, but the reality is he helped this team win a championship. That third guard is important because Clay's never playing him back-to-backs probably the rest of his career, and Steph is going to miss
on nights like last night.
And Steph's going to miss 10 to 15 games. So, is he the ideal sixth man? Does he think he would want to be doing more or be a starter? Maybe, but you also have paid him to do a number of these different roles while also being a young player, which means he isn't going to be a perfect player immediately.
Right. But
he is helping this team. I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you. And like last night, case in point, you need him on nights like that. But this is his fourth year, right? He's young, but this is his fourth year, and there's some mistakes he makes, like last night when he got called for a delay game because he wouldn't give the ball to the official. They're just so avoidable. That's what's frustrating. It's like, why are you doing that? Why are you turning the ball over at the end of games when you're trying to drive and you fall down? You did that last game. Those are avoidable mistakes that I think frustrate people, but I think clearly he's helped them, and they don't win that game without him last night. There's no question.
All right, from one Tim to another, we go to Tim on the road here on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Tim?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Great. Thank you for taking my call. Yeah, I'm not all that much divergent in opinion as the last Tim. I actually think that the team as we have right now is well suited to win another championship for really one reason. And that's because this team has shown, except for the injury-plagued years, that they have a switch that no other team has. And I know that the body of evidence that we have as we're watching through a long season is all regular season games, but I think Steve Kerr realized back in the 71 season that they tried to achieve something in those win totals that if he could take it back, he probably would to trade it for a championship. And that team should have won a championship that year. The switch that they have that no other team has is the ability to turn it on. No other team has it. They could win whenever they want, except for, games like Game 1 of the Celtics series last year where they blew a big lead, which is not something that they've done before. But they have that switch with the core group of people they have now in those 15 roster spots. And because of that, I think they don't need anybody else.
Thanks for the call, Tim. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. I really do.
There's a very good chance that they have everything they need now. And, they're doing their due diligence. They're probably going to end up adding somebody around the edges. But, yeah, as we've said a number of times, I think the other Tim mentioned, if JaMychal Green is going to play anything close to the way he played last night, then it's hard to argue that they have everything that they would need.
It's not absolute. They're trying to figure it out. They've had so many players in and out in different roles. Like, you're starting to see, I think, what it's going to have to look like. But, yeah, if JaMychal Green plays as they intended for him to play, then maybe they don't have to go do something.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Anthony Lamb gets plugged into the 15th spot, and that's it. But I think there is a scenario where maybe Wiseman gets moved. I think there's a scenario where maybe JaMychal Green gets moved to free up a roster spot if he's deemed to be somebody that can't help this team. I think there's reason to believe that maybe they have to do something with Iguodala if he deems himself to be unplayable. Maybe you got to cut him and make him a coach, and at that point you get a roster spot somewhere there and look to the buyout market, fringe trade market, all of those things. I think, Whitey, are on the board.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe in the flip the switch thing. I mean, maybe they did to a degree last year. Well, they did last year as soon as the playoffs started, but I don't know about that. To what extent, JD, do you think you have to, if any, do you have to monitor what other teams are doing at the deadline? There's other teams in the West that are looking to make moves, and it's tightly packed, despite the fact that, well, right now you got the two teams that are starting to separate themselves. Do you have to be mindful as you look at what you're going to do here with the Warrior roster of what other teams are going to do at the deadline in the conference? I don't know how much you can.
I think you have to just look at yourself first and foremost. I really do. I think because, is there a big move that another team in the West can make? Like, that's where I kind of wonder. It doesn't seem like there are big name players that are going to be on the move. It seems like it's maybe starters and role players that are going to be more on the move this deadline, right? Like, who's the biggest superstar that could be on the move potentially?
I don't know who that is,
like
but I know
one,
that
right?
The Denver Nuggets, according to reports here, because they feel like, wow, look where we are. We might have a chance this year to actually play deep into the playoffs.
So they're going to trade
anything? I don't know who that is, but they're going to be looking, and they're looking.
They're going to trade Michael Porter Jr. for somebody, that's where, who would they?
It's a good point.
I'm not saying, but to do that, to me, that would mess up your chemistry if you're going to do that. Let's get Ron in Concord next. Here, final couple of minutes. Ron, you're on 95.7 The Game.
All right, thanks for taking my call.
I just want to say I'm boiling over because I think it's a huge mistake giving up on our big man, Wiseman. I remember, well, you got to remember that big men take a while to develop, and Wiseman is a talent. He is a very good talent. Now, the Warriors are currently underutilizing him and stifling his development, but he is a big talent that will grow. And I'm old enough to remember a big mistake the Warriors made back in 1980 when they gave up their big man. They traded Robert Parrish for draft picks, ended up with Joe Barry Carroll and Ricky Brown, and the Celtics in our place, in the spot that we would have picked, they ended up drafting Kevin McHale. They ended up with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. They ended up winning 4 championships. Robert Parrish goes on and becomes an all-star 7 times, and becomes a Hall of Fame player. And I think that this is the same type of mistake that we're going to make. This guy, Wiseman, he is a talent.
Thanks for the call. I mean,
Wiseman's nowhere near as good as Robert Parrish was when he was his first 2 years in the league. But I understand the point.
Nowhere near.
Yeah.
And at this point, I mean, we're getting again on the text line. Wiseman is the future. Well,
you may be right.
But maybe we're talking about.
I haven't seen it.
We're talking about years from now, as opposed to months from now, where this team could do something special. Whitey, great stuff today, my man. Thanks to Craig. Fox Sports Radio next. We'll talk to you next Saturday right here on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, let's throw a party this year for the big game.
Oh, great idea. But first, we should get a new TV. One of the top-rated brands. Samsung, LG, or Sony.
Okay, I'll start shopping on the internet and then head over to the Warehouse Club.
Well, but if that's all we do, we'll be sorry.
Why?
Because the best deals on those top-rated TVs are at video only, not online or at the club.
Video only?
Yep. We can save up to $500 if we ship